Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Yoruichi, Neliel and Harribel? The movie. Huge shout out to NeonZangetsu for this story. If you want more awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. There was a hole in Naruto's chest. Why? Why was there a hole in his chest? Was this somebody's idea of a joke? If so, he wasn't laughing. Try as he might, he couldn't make sense of it. Blasted thing didn't even hurt. Wasn't a wound either. It was just there. Right where his heart should be, just visible beneath his tattered orange jacket. He could stick his hand right through it, flail his fingers around and everything. He did just that and felt perfectly fine. Well, not fine per se, but still pretty strange, you know? He should be panicking, he knew. Hell, he had panicked 3 hours ago when he'd woken up here. Now the panic had bled away, leaving only morbid curiosity behind. Well, he thumbed his chin as he considered the perfectly tear in his torso. This is a problem, that's putting it mildly. Kurama didn't sound much pleased with it either. How are you even alive? Naruto didn't dare answer that question. Instead, he cast another glance to his surroundings. That, at least, remained unchanged. Blue eyes rose to behold the vast wasteland before him. Nothing but sand, sand and more sand as far as the eye could see. A ghastly moon hung high above, bathing the dark sky in perpetual night. A dead world. Even the land of wind looked livelier than this, an endless and vast wasteland that stretched on into eternity. I don't think we're in the elemental nations anymore. You think? That was putting it mildly. Was he dead? He didn't feel dead. If anything, he never felt more alive. He could feel the sage's power still coursing through him, warming his blood and opening his eyes. If he cut his finger, he'd probably bleed. On a whim, he dug a finger into his palm. A thin bead of blood welled up beneath his thumb, the wound sealing almost immediately thereafter. Ouch! A quick pinch to his arm confirmed his suspicion. Yup, felt that. Still alive, I guess. Of course you're alive, fool! Kurama's voice thundered in his head. I wouldn't be here if you weren't. I just wanted to be sure, you know. Honestly, you're denser than a brick sometimes. Well, that settled it. He didn't know where he was, and he didn't much like it. The last thing he remembered was a terrible clash with Sasuke, a burning pain in his right arm. And then nothing. Hopefully he was alright, wherever he was. He'd been on his last legs, and even with time to recover, he didn't much fancy his chances in an empty world like this. On your left, craning his neck, Naruto spied a building in the distance. At least he assumed it was a building. Some strange structure of a sort. Maybe a fortress? Castle? He couldn't tell from here. But it was something, and something, as they say, was better than nothing. Maybe they had food, or barring that, hopefully a bed. He felt strangely hungry, and not the good kind. Oddly enough, it helped to have a destination, if only to settle his mind. He set off at a brisk jog. From there it didn't take long to reach once he actively exerted himself. Kurama's chakra didn't fail him. In no time at all he found himself standing before it. Turned out the castle was a lot bigger close up. Great looming gray walls swelled before him, seeming to touch the heavens themselves. No door to be seen. Seemed the only way up was through. Alright then. He cracked his knuckles. Guess I'm walking up that. A dull crack of sound snapped at his flank, causing him to jump. Who approaches the walls of Las Noches? Gah! Sneaky little. He spun and found himself face to face with a well-endowed woman clad in black and white, slender as she was tall. Hazel eyes blinked back at him, set within a stern visage crowned by long, flowing emerald hair. A single crimson line ran the length of her face from one cheek to the other, tracing across the bridge of her nose. Stranger still, an odd, skull-like mask sat atop her head, bearing curved horns. There was a sword at her side, and by the look of her, she knew how to use it. Naruto couldn't help but frown at that last bit. What was someone doing with a sword all the way out here? And why was she glaring at him? Why are you here, intruder? She planted a fist on her hip, fingers straying perilously close to her blade. Speak, lest I cut you down. She'd do it, too. Naruto found he could still sense that much. Her emotions were a tangled knot, but beneath it he sensed a steely resolve. That sword of hers would come out if he held his tongue. Luckily for her, he didn't have any intention of picking a fight here. Well, he crossed both arms behind his head with a sigh, I was hoping you could tell me. Kinda lost here. You are a hollow. An Arrancar. She didn't quite scoff at him, but it was close. How are you lost? Confusion twisted his brow into a frown. Hello? Arrancar? What are those? I'm human. Silence stretched between them, and in it, Naruto wondered if he'd said something wrong just now, because the woman was looking at him like he'd grown a second head. He scratched his cheek. That seemed to reactivate her, if only for a moment. Are you mad? Her frown redoubled. You are far from human, lost soul. What in the log's name was she on about? He'd never heard of those. And a soul? Alright, that's just rude. Anger stirred and his right eye began to twitch. I may be lost, but I'm pretty sure I'd know if I was this hollow or whatever. There is no if about it, intruder. The swordswoman shook her head, green hair swaying side to side. You are one. I am not. Here at last his temper slipped its leash. He flung up his arms with an aggravated growl. Look, if you're just going to keep calling me names, I'm leaving. You're daft. Her eyes flicked down to his chest, then met his again. There is, she stepped forward, a hole. Her finger stabbed into his collarbone, in your chest. Here at last, a touch of heat weaved its way through her words. Humans do not have those. Her forehead smashed against his, bringing with it a faint, earthy scent as those steely hazel eyes drilled into his flickering azure. They cannot live with such a wound. Oh. Was she worried about him? It'll heal. He nudged her hand down. I've lived through worse. Remind me to tell you the time my best friend blew out my lungs. If I healed from that, I can heal from this. The woman retreated, blinking at him. You are strange. Lady, you don't know the half of it. Anyone could see that there was nothing to be gained from this argument. With a brisk nod, Naruto made to move past her. Look, I'm leaving. She caught a tattered sleeve in hand. Halt. I'm not done with you. Now what? He pivoted to face her. I'm getting hungry and you're starting to make me mad, miss? Neliel. She offered him her hand. I am the third Espada. You would do well to show me respect. Oh, sure. On a whim, he reached out and shook her hand. If it's names you're after, I'm Naruto. Nell's brows shot into her hairline and mask alike. A strange name for a strange soul. Well, she wasn't wrong there. Don't blame me, blame my parents. That got a quizzical blink out of her. You remember your past? Well, yeah? Naruto squinted at her, still clinging to his hand. It's my life. Kinda lived it, you know? Why wouldn't I remember it? Her mouth opened and closed, struggling to find words. At length, she managed a weak-sounding, hollows don't remember their past lives. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Like I said, I am not a hollow. You clearly are. There's a mask fragment on your jaw. Was that why his face felt so itchy? He touched his freeing hand to a whiskered cheek and felt the faint fragments of something there. Without a mirror, he couldn't be sure. Who knows? It might improve your ugly mug. Do you understand now? Nell's frown returned with a vengeance that would have made Sasuke proud. Really, Neliel was too difficult for him to remember, much less pronounce. Easier to shorten it to something he'd be able to recall. Speaking of which, another question was nagging at him, one of many he'd had since bumbling his way into her. I gotta ask though. A beat of silence passed between them. At length Naruto tilted his head. What the heck's an espada? Surely you jest. A faint spot of color hit her cheeks as she yanked her hand from his. Are you trying to make me angry? He felt a flicker of something from her then, a vague sense of pressure bearing down on his shoulders and some unseen weight. Naruto shrugged it off like so much water off a duck's back. If she thought to intimidate him, she had another thing coming. He'd stared down gods and monsters, fought things that would drive men mad. Kaguya made Neliel look like a harmless child by comparisons. That said, he wasn't here to pick a fight. No, no! He waved his hands to fend her off when she reached for her sword. Not at all. I'm just really confused about all this. I woke up here, you know, slowly, almost reluctantly, her fingers uncurled from the hilt. You mean to say you died and awakened as an Arrancar? That shouldn't be possible. Lady, I don't know what that means. He clicked his tongue at her. And I ain't dead. Kurama would be gone if I was. You don't have a sword on you, at that. Long lashes fluttered in a slow blink. Never mind. What is a Kurama? Is it a dish humans eat? Naruto nearly choked on his spit. I like this one. Kurama's low growl pervaded his mind. Death wish aside, she's got spirit, which I'm starting to think we might be. Wait. Spirit? As in deceased? A knot of dread began to coil in the young man's stomach, bringing with it a rare touch of fear, the first he'd felt since he'd found himself dead? To hear such words from a stranger was one thing, but from the partner he trusted his life with? Well, that was a whole nother kettle of fish. He couldn't be dead. He just couldn't. There was still so much he needed to do. He flicked a thought inward. Are we? You tell me. I've been pushing chakra to that hole for the last 5 minutes, and it still isn't healing. Everything else seems intact. His world lurched, threatening to bring him to his knees. Dead. Which meant someone had killed him. Likely Sasuke. Had he killed him, too? Had they died together in their final clash? They'd both been on their last legs during their final battle, exhausted and nearly out of chakra. It wasn't a stretch to imagine. But dead? He still had all his chakra, and the sage's power to boot. How could he be dead, you're asking me? Kurama sounded just as lost. I knew your old man bound us together with that blasted Shinigami, but to think it would transcend death, it was too much. His pupils shrank as he made a keening noise. Some of his concern must have shown through, too, because Nell took pity on him. Once more she approached, but slowly this time. He didn't truly notice her until she touched him, couldn't bring himself to react until her fingers threaded with his. The sudden tenderness startled him. When he looked to her he found no anger, no irritation, only calm, placid understanding for his plight. Come with me. Slowly, gingerly, she turned and took a step back, guiding him towards the castle. Worry not, I will see you tended to. Naruto found himself stumbling after her, still dazed. Tended to? Hey! Wait a minute! What do you think I need? Hazel eyes flicked over her shoulder, down to his ruined outfit. A change of clothes, for starters. He whined a little, head drooping as he realized what she intended. Ah, but I like orange. That may well be, she said, but you can't go about wearing those rags. Naruto grumbled, yet let himself be led along regardless. He couldn't really be dead, could he? How do I look? Hardly the words Neliel expected this morning, but there it was. Naruto twisted from side to side before her in her quarters, regarding his outfit with not hate. He didn't have a mean bone in his body, but annoyance all the same. He wasn't much pleased with the color. She supposed the discomfort was to be expected. It had taken her a week, a full 7 days, to get him out of those ruined rags, another to convince him to wear something else, and nearly a third to make him keep the garments he was currently draped in. And a good thing she had, or she would have snapped and threatened him with physical harm. Clad in the atypical uniform of most Erincar, he looked entirely ill at his ease, feigning an impassive aura. The espada raised a pale hand to hide her mouth and the faint smile she wore there. Mustn't laugh. If she did now, he'd tear them off and parade around in his boxers again. Zaraki nearly had an aneurysm last time, to say nothing of Nnoitra. Nell thumbed her chin and tilted her head. Then tilted it some more. What? Naruto spun in place, looking self-conscious. What's with the long face? Not bad. She thumbed her chin, nodded once, and smiled, a rare and happy thing. Black and white looks good on you. Good? He scoffed and tugged at his collar, blue eyes sparkling. How is this good? He'd gotten better at that since he'd settled in here, more willing to speak his mind. It doesn't feel good. I feel like a damn doll. Her lips quirked. Better than you running around half naked. Naruto held up a finger. Paused. Considered what she'd said. Sulked. Nell tossed her hair over one shoulder and preened a little. Another point to her. Poor boy. He really did look miserable. She took pity on him at the last. You don't have to wear it like Ulquiorra. It's hardly a uniform. Breathed Irup. She was still speaking when Naruto reached down and tore the collar of the uniform away, exposing his neck, a good bit of his chest, with the hole therein. Yet for all his childish antics, his smile was pure. Radiant even. It was the first time he'd smiled at her like that since they'd met. The ice was thawing between them these last few days, slowly but surely. Was that not a good thing? Surely it was. Her heart skipped a beat at the thought. She wasn't sure why, but it made her chest ache. Dondo Chaka and Pesh would surely get along with him once they met. Where were they anyway? She'd not seen them for the last few days. Much better. Naruto flopped down beside her on the bed with a Cheshire grin, startling her. I can actually breathe now. Nell cast a baffled look at him. You're dead. You don't need to breathe. Pretty sure I do. Come. Rather than retort, she rose. It's time for Sonito training. Already? Naruto uttered a jaw-popping yawn, but didn't deny her request, slouching into the hall after her. I keep telling ya, I don't need that. I can move plenty fast without it. Of that Nell had no doubt, but it wouldn't do for him to be unprepared. She couldn't be everywhere. Likewise, she couldn't protect him forever. Sooner or later someone would take issue with Naruto and try to pick a fight. One in particular was likely to do so sooner rather than later. It was the way of hollows. Some of them had regained their humanity while others remained every bit the beasts they'd been before. Their footfalls echoed through the empty hall, lending his words an odd echo. If there was one thing Nell disliked about this place, it was the atmosphere. Dead, lifeless. Devoid of life and humanity. Each espada had their own quarters to be sure, but beyond them, the halls of Las Noches were just as barren as the desert without. It irked her at times. Sometimes she even found herself struck with a strange longing to visit the human world. A remnant from her past life, perhaps? Are you even listening? I am. She lied effortlessly, craning her neck to look back at Naruto. Tell me, can you at least use a Zero? He laughed merrily. Does a tailed beast bomb count? Oh? Neliel arched a pale eyebrow Naruto's way. Hey! Come on, don't look at me like that. Another brow rose to join her first. Naruto's sulk returned and brought a slew with it as he stabbed both hands into his pockets. Alright, twist my arm, why don't ya? There it was, that small, secretive smile again. He wasn't cowed by her reproach, rather, he seemed content to ignore her attempts to train him, just as a small child might ignore vegetables. Such a strange Arrancar. He wasn't even trying to be, he simply was. She'd been lucky in that regard, indeed, fortunate to learn this truth early on. Not only did it spare her a great many headaches, but she felt she had begun to unravel the mystery that was the latest guest of Las Noches. It wasn't his insistence that he was still alive, it was his lust for life and fascination for all things colorful, and his hunger. For reasons she couldn't understand, he had an insatiable craving for human food. They didn't need to eat, a fact she tried and failed to impress upon him, only made it all the more baffling. No rank for him either, he didn't want one, nor a fraction to attend him for that matter. Instead, he puttered around the castle whenever he wasn't with her, making every effort to learn the names of each Arrancar he met. He baffled many of her brethren, and in some cases, confusion had turned to hate. Nnoitra couldn't stand him. No, perhaps that was too soft a word for someone like him. He despised Naruto. Not only did the chipper blonde refuse to fight him, but he seemed intent on making friends with him. Nnoitra loathed allies. Friends, help, any of it. A fight was all the Mad Mantis ever craved, beast that he was. She supposed that spoke for Naruto's character. If that braggart hated someone, then they were undoubtedly pure of heart. Or whatever passed for a hollow heart. How would she stay mad at Naruto, thus? The answer was simple. She couldn't, lively boy that he was. What would Lord Aizen think of him? The thought came out of nowhere, but it still chilled Nell's blood. Naruto likely wouldn't give a flying fig for their Shinigami lord, but it didn't change the fact that he'd upset the natural order here. That would doubtlessly earn Aizen's gaze if nothing else. Would he try to control him? Something told her that would end poorly. One could not tame a storm. You'd have better luck trying to put rains on the moon. To even try was folly. But that moment was neither here nor there. She would protect him until he came into his own. It was her duty to the weak, after all. How little she knew. I'm thinking it still needs some color though. Naruto's sudden remark snapped her back to reality. He'd gotten remarkably good at that. The outfit, I mean. Nell touched a finger to her lips. You really do like that color? Yup. He beamed. He watched. As she looked on with mild intrigue, Naruto touched one hand to the black sash around his waist. Before her very eyes the once drab color became a lively amber. Not satisfied with that alteration alone, he reached up and slapped a palm atop each shoulder as though to embrace himself. Beneath his fingers the once static material gained size and mass, creating a long flowing, high-collar jacket over his Arrancar uniform. He thrust his arm through a half-formed sleeve, rimmed with black flames around the edges, donning the new cloak even as he created it. "How are you doing that?" Still changing his attire, Naruto raced ahead of her with merry laugh. Nell darted after him in time to see him take a right, then burst through a door, all but leaping into daylight. "Wait!" Shading her eyes, she raced after him. She didn't have to go far. Stood under a balcony under the false sun of Las Noches. He looked more vibrant than ever before. "Sorry for running," he crossed both arms behind his head, not sounding apologetic in the least. "Wanted to surprise ya." Only then did she see the other alterations he made. The white and black colors of his uniform were still there, but they were muted now, more vibrant somehow despite the change. The richly colored cloak he wore drew the eye in a way few things could, a rich orange framed by those embroidered black flames she'd seen before. All told, Neliel thought the orange and black contrasted rather nicely with the white of his trousers, but how had he done that? "Tada!" he preened, giving himself a once-over. "It's no Hokage cloak, but close enough. Reminds me of when I fought Pain, you know." Another little spin as he admired his handiwork. "I put my own spin on it. Think I got everything right." Her eyes widened. "How did you do that? What, this?" He squinted at her in the sun, rather reminding her of a fox. "You mean creation of all things? I've been able to do it for a while now. Why do you people wear black and white anyway?" Just as quickly he changed tact and threw her off again. "Ain't that a little dull?" Nell felt herself bridle. "Excuse me? I didn't mean anything by it." The blonde shrugged. "Did it ever occur to you to, I dunno, wear something with more color?" The third espada opened her mouth to retort in kind. Closed it. Opened it a second time, then closed it a third. Why did they wear black and white? Someone once said it was the reverse of the Shinigami, many of whom they loathed. But why did they stick with such a bland color scheme? It wasn't forced on them by any means. You may have a point. A hint of heat hit her cheeks. "Lord Aizen suggested we wear such, but he's not enforced it." "Aizen, huh?" His brow furrowed. "Haven't even met the guy and I dislike him already." "What about you?" Long lashes fluttered in a brief, startled blink. "I beg your pardon?" He elbowed her. "What kind of colors do you like?" Nell paused, her thoughts grinding to a halt, lingering in a mire of confusion. She'd never thought of such a color she liked. Her eyes drifted to the false sky overhead. Fake though it was, it still offered more color than the rest of this ruined world. A faint smile dimpled her cheeks. "Blue," she said at last. His eyes lit up at once, and she knew she'd said something he liked. "Well, now you've done it. I think Kurama likes you." There it was. That curious mention of someone she couldn't see. Another reminder of his madness. But maybe, just maybe, this kind of madness wasn't so bad every once in a while. "I still do not understand how you did that. Creation of all things is pretty broken." He held up his left hand and a blue blaze burned within, while a scarlet shroud shimmered in the right. "It's not even my jutsu. I inherited from the old sage, you know? I'm still getting the hang of it." "So you can just create whatever you want?" She felt it a fair question. "Anything at all? Within reason, I guess." He extinguished the flames in his hands and stepped past her, looking out at the dunes, and the great red pillars dotting them. "I've been practicing a little." Something shifted in her peripherals. His sixth sense shrieked a warning. Naruto blew out a sharp sigh. "Now? Of all times?" He felt the attack coming a mile off. Really, when you could sense negative emotions, it was just too easy. Nell must have noticed something too, because she'd only just begun to pivot. Too slow. Stepping in, he checked her with his hip, nudging her ever so slightly to the right. She made a noise of confusion, then protest, but he paid her little heed. His right hand was already rising, just as a shadow was falling. A massive crescent-shaped blade swept down. 5 firm fingers swept up. Steel met flesh. The former yielded with a gritty crack as the ground splintered beneath him. 2 eyes beamed up at a single sneering orb. "Nnoitra, right?" Naruto smiled. It was not a nice smile, Neliel thought, watching the weapon creak in his grasp. "Don't you know ambushes are for weaklings? Leave Nell alone." TCH. His praise struggled, to no avail. "This isn't any of your business. You're not the one I'm after." Honestly, it was adorable watching his prey flail and try to pry his weapon free. He stamped down on the ugly thought. Prey? Where had that come from? He disliked Nnoitra's attitude, sure, but he never once thought of the lesser espada as something to hunt down. And yet the more he raged at him, the more Naruto felt the urge to laugh. Oh, I think it is. His smile grew instead. Now say you're sorry, his adversary bridled. Or what, you little shit? His body blazed gold. Or you'll be sorry. Silence stretched between them. You think I'm scared of you? Nnoitra laughed into it, a low, coarse sound that grated on his last nerve. I've never even seen you throw a punch since you got here, not once. He leaned forward, sneering at him. Look at you! An errand car without a weapon. You can't even use your true power. Naruto quirked a brow. Is that really what you think? Ha! It's obvious, ain't it? The man's sudden bravado worried him more than he cared to admit. Maybe that's why you keep running away from me all the time. I mean, really? He cackled, exposing the 8 tattooed across his tongue. Who taught you how to fight? Your parents? Because they did a shitty job. His shoulders twitched. Did you just? Nnoitra! Nell drew her blade in a flourish of steel. That was uncalled for. Take those words back at once. You stay out of this, bitch. Once I kill him, you're next. We settle this today. A faint ringing rose in Naruto's ears. A shitty job, huh? That was a new insult. For as far as he could remember, no one had ever insulted Minato and Kushina to his face. Not directly. They were great parents. The best a kid could hope for. If they'd lived, his life would have been so much different. They would have loved Nell. He'd only known them for a few minutes, only said a few words to them back then, but even so. The jab stung in the worst of ways. An unfamiliar emotion stirred in the pit of his stomach, something he'd long since forgotten. Naruto. Kurama's voice was a sibilant hiss. Did you hear what he just said? Blue eyes drifted shut. A long, shuddering sigh slipped through the air. Get him. Nnoitra's neck snapped back as a golden fist slammed into his chin. His feet left the floor of Las Noches, but he didn't get far. Even as he flew, a clawed hand caught him by the ankle and swung him back down with horrid force, shattering the balcony underfoot. Together, they slammed into the sands below. The lower errand car snarled at him as they grappled with one another. Said snarl snapped into a gasp as firm fingers closed around his face, pushing him into the dunes. Naruto's jaw clicked open. A brilliant red swell built in the back of his throat, heralding a roar of purest rage to bathe his victim in dark light. Huh! A small, distant part of his brain blinked. So that's how I make a zero. Nnoitra spat back at the last second. Gold clashed against crimson, flinging them apart in a rush of head. Not for long, his victims stumbled to their feet, trying to speak. Naruto didn't give him a chance. Take! A fist slammed into his windpipe, curdling the words in his throat. Back! An angry knee folded him like so much paper. What? Clenched knuckles crunched his face. You! Ribs crunched beneath a kick. Said, an outraged Rasengan struck Nnoitra's chest, drilling him into the sand. Why, you little? He surged to his feet quickly thereafter, warding him off with his weapon. Golden light swelled around him, sheathing him in an eerie glower. You think this is over? I ain't gonna die. Not here. Not to some pansy-ass coward like you. Nell clambered down after him, her expression frantic. Don't let him use his release. Pray. Too late, Nnoitra howled, flinging his weapon high. Santa Teresa, pressure. Naruto couldn't find any other word for it. One moment Nnoitra had been about to do something. In the next, his aura guttered out as an ocean of invisible force crashed down onto their shoulders. Nnoitra slammed onto his hands and knees with a dull wheeze of surprise, gasping for air. Nell sank to a knee behind him. Naruto grit his teeth and stood tall throughout it all. It wasn't so much uncomfortable as it was startling. Rather, it had simply appeared. You would weaken my ranks? A low voice intoned behind the one-eyed espada. Know your place. Nnoitra's lone eye widened. Wait, I will not. You've disappointed me for the last time. Steel flashed out in a silver arc, simple, clean, and precise. Nnoitra's head tumbled from his shoulders. It struck the ground and bounced once, his face still frozen in the horror of his last moments. Bereft of balance, his body buckled and began to. Was it dissolving? As quickly as it came, the pressure ceased. Naruto pivoted and found himself gazing upon a rather unassuming young man stood behind the crumbling corpse. Clad in black robes, a white haori thrown his shoulders, he looked utterly ordinary. His face was friendly, tousled by brown hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile creased his lips. Were those actual glasses he wore? They were. He looked friendly enough, just the sort of face you might see in a crow and think harmless. Under any other circumstance, he wouldn't have given him so much as a passing glance, but this man had just butchered someone right in front of them. My apologies. He cast his blade to the right with a sharp flourish, spattering blood at their feet. I couldn't help but intervene. Lord Aizen! Nell stiffened in his peripherals, eyes wide. Why did you fear? She radiated it like a cloud. Why? Why would she be afraid? Kill him? The man Shinigami sheathed his sword with a faint, bemused smile. You know full well why. He brought disgrace to the name of the Espada. In any case, something in his smile made the normally stoic young woman quail. I believe I've found his replacement. Naruto quirked a brow. You're talking about me, aren't you? There was something off about this guy. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. Aizen wore a smile, but it felt false, for lack of a better word. His instincts were shrieking at him, and so he delved deeper, stretching his senses outward, throwing them at him as one might cast a net. Looking underneath the underneath, he pierced the veil of the unassuming man before him. Kurama absolutely hissed. And they call me a monster, I am. What he found there had him recoiling, least of all because this this thing was suddenly looking at him again. Might I have your name? No harm in giving his name, at least. Naruto. His entire being tensed. Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet ya. Naruto, was it? The strange man smiled at his words. Would you mind looking at my sword? Sure. He hummed, smiling genially. But you have to look at my fist first. Aizen blinked, not quite comprehending his words. What? Clenched knuckles barreled into his face. He'd forgotten pain. It was something of an embarrassing truth for Aizen Sasuke. He'd grown so powerful over so many centuries that he could no longer recall what it felt like to take a punch. Perhaps he had once during his youth. Perhaps he'd felt pain before in his younger days. But he simply couldn't remember, until now, until today, when a brightly clad errand decked him right in the schnoz. Now it blazed through his face like wildfire, agony so intense that he actually blacked out for a moment. When he came to, he found himself flat on his back, staring up at the dead sky of Waco Mundo. My, his dazed mind supplied, the moon's quite lovely tonight. Was that a falling star? No, they didn't have those here, and they certainly didn't glow gold. Oh dear, he twisted his body to the side, just as well he did. Not a moment later he heard a sandal-clad foot crash down where his face used to be. Sand sprayed forth from the impact, obscuring his foe. No matter. He could still sense him, and he'd not be caught unawares again. Said foe slammed through the smokescreen and snapped a kick into his ribs, fracturing three, to send him skidding across the sand. From there, instinct took over. He righted himself, warding Kyuka's Sujetsu before his face. A hand clamped down on his shoulder. Where are you looking? Gold flashed. Clenched knuckles barreled into his face. His glasses shattered. Blood flew through the air. He spun, shuriken at the ready, only to find his opponent hadn't opened his eyes. Had he guessed at his shuriken? How frightening. No. Mustn't panic. Be calm. Serene like a placid mirror, reflecting only the outer world back at it itself, and none of his inner turmoil. When the blonde came at him again, his blade flicked out and into the sand. Whatever are you attacking me for? The jolly errand still had his fist thrust forward at him, knuckles weeping blood. His blood. Even now he didn't lower it. Baleful blue eyes met his across the dunes. Rooted him where he stood. You're not the first guy to try and hit me with a Genjutsu. His was a low, gravelly warning. I won't be fooled. Genjutsu? What was that? A thin line of blood ran down his nose. Lovely. Not broken then. With his physical state assured and a reprieve gained, his brilliant mind began to ponder the matter before him. It had been quite some time since he'd been caught unawares. How intriguing. Aizen felt no anger. Why would he? This was a momentary slip. A lapse. Little more. His plans were not in jeopardy. Not yet. As such, he felt he could be forgiven for taking a moment to bask in this rare surprise. Why had the hollow struck him? Had he given himself away? If so, how? Did he possess the ability to read minds? Unlikely. He'd only reacted with anger when he'd drawn his blade intending to hypnotize. A thought dawned. Pity. He would have liked to take him alive for study, but across the way the blonde tensed. Don't even think about it. Aizen raised his head. An epiphany struck. Was that it then? Could he sense some manner of negative intent perhaps? If so, that might be a problem. Frankly, he would have preferred the mind readings. Thoughts could be concealed, but to mask one's true intent? Difficult, even for one such as him. Did they have to be enemies? He'd converted some of his most intractable adversaries into allies. What other options did he have? He could weave an illusion around Neliel, spur the woman to attack while he was distracted, but at what cost? Doing so now would burn any bridge he hoped to build. A cornered rat always fought the hardest, and if he pushed this young man he'd have no choice but to slay him. The truth, then? If this one took issue, he could always slay him. On a whim, he sheathed his sword. All or nothing. He had once chance to convince the being before him. My apologies. He adopted a small, chagrined smile, and bowed his head. Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot, you think, Uzumaki Naruto? He spoke slowly, ponderously even, choosing each word with infinite care. Do you not feel that this world is lacking? The blonde looked to Neliel, and scratched at the back of his head. Dunno. Haven't been here that long, but it is. His voice hardened as he hearkened to the conversation. Both here, the soul society, and the living world beyond, all are in desperate need of repair. You are new to this realm, yet you've seen how quickly your kind are to turn upon one another. Would you live in such a world? His gaze shifted to the shattered shards of Nnoitra's weapon in the sand. Those bright blue orbs flicked back to Nell. I keep telling ya I ain't dead. He was, technically. And under the Soul King's stagnant rule, the current system was falling apart. Slowly, inexorably, but it was crumbling all the same. Wait, there's a world outside this one? Those words rang with truth. Was he truly so ignorant? Indeed, several. All are unbalanced, left unchecked. Aizen nodded slowly, not trusting himself to speak anything but the truth, not when he didn't know the depth of the boy's sensory ability. What I am working toward is a grand goal. He held out a hand toward him. Allow me to be frank. I wish to kill the god of these worlds, that is to say, slay the Soul King himself. To that effect I need an army, all right. He didn't expect the blonde to nod. I can understand that much. I've met a god before. They're jerks. Aizen's jaw clicked open before he managed to comport himself. I beg your pardon? Behind the blonde, Neliel whimpered. You what? On paper it sounded too fantastic to believe, yet his words rang with truth all the same. It also troubled him. The idea of multiple gods was not something he'd accounted for. There should only be one. Yup. As they looked on aghast, Naruto clasped both hands behind his head. Kaguya was one crazy bitch, but she was definitely a goddess. I'll tell you about her sometime? The blonde tilted his head. What comes next? Once you kill this god of yours, here it was, the moment of truth. Nothing but complete and utter honesty would do. I intend to take his place, to bring order and peace to the world. He said frankly. That is all. You're not going to use a moon or trap people in an illusion, are ya? Confusion twisted its way through him. Why would I do that? No reason. Just axing. In the world he intended to make, there would be no need for such parlor tricks. Everyone would live in harmony once he founded his dynasty. True, there might be growing pains in the beginning perhaps, but one could not make an omelette, as they say, without breaking a few eggs. But he was looking at him now, and he must attend. I intend to eviscerate anyone who seeks to control me. He spread his arms wide, showing himself harmless. Nothing more, nothing less. It felt good to be honest after all these centuries. Maybe he should try more often. To reach his realm of the Spirit King, however, I require a special key, which in turn requires a great many souls to be forged. Those blue eyes fastened on him. Yeah, no. Find another way. I ain't letting you kill innocents. Of course he'd have qualms about that. Then what do you propose? Can't be that hard to find a way there. The young man paced away, shaking his head. Give me enough time and power, and I could probably tear my way in. He paused, glancing over his shoulder over him. I'd like to see this god myself, you know. A world where you eat people to survive, that doesn't sit well with me. Aizen stilled the rush of anticipation that shot through him. Was this truly happening? Well, far be it from him to throw away a potential pawn. No. This man was more than a pawn, more than Jin and Tosin could ever be. Smiling, he offered Naruto his hand. Partners, then? He makes a compelling argument. So did Obito. Naruto thumbed his chin, considering. Can we trust him? We can trust him to do what he believes to be in his best interests. Close enough. And we need allies. Not at all by his liking, but it would have to do. Aizen had been honest after their brawl, if nothing else. So long as he didn't try to ensnare him with his sword again, he could tolerate him. For now. Bloody silver tongue. He was the only one who should have had that. What about you? He flicked a curious glance Nell's way. What's your say in this? The Espada's face bled a bright cherry red. It's nothing you need concern yourself with, but I am concerned. He pivoted, grabbing her by the shoulder. That Nnoitra was out to get you. Is that really how it is out here? Kill or be killed? She averted her eyes and gripped one arm close to her bosom. It is our way. Then maybe things need to change. I agree. He blinked. Nell, say what now? I said I agree. She stepped to him and laid a hand on his. But the change you seek to implement will not be easy. Still, that was sweet of you. What you did for me. She dithered for a moment, bright eyes flicking this way and that like some skittish foal. I won't forget this. Then she moved, warm, soft, the faintest brush of lips against the corner of his mouth. Kurama whistled. Aizen made a faint amused sound. Naruto touched a hand to his cheek. There. Neliel kept her head down, refusing to look at him, not willing to let him see just how red her face was. I'll see you tomorrow. She vanished in a crackle of sound. You've already won her over. Aizen chuckled softly. It seems I've underestimated you yet again. Pivoting, he offered him his hand once more. What say you? Partners? Naruto considered the palm as one might a venomous snake. Some might call this a mistake. Maybe it was. Still, better the devil you knew than the one you didn't. Aizen's goal sounded good on paper. It was the means he intended to use that worried him. And his words worried him. If there really was a God in this world, and if they truly let everything go to hell like this, if you do something I don't like, he jabbed a finger his way with intent, I'll have to kick your ass. The Shinigami offered a genial smile in return. I'd expect nothing less. Shall we begin? Naruto stepped in and grasped his palm. Fine. Where do we start? Together, two monsters shook hands. Thus was an accord struck. Time passed strangely in Hueco Muendo. With the moon ever present without and the false sun within, Naruto had trouble telling night from day, much less the hours. He tried to keep track of it all. Really, he did. In the end, he couldn't. How much time passed in that hollow world, he never knew. Days? Weeks? Months? It didn't feel like a year, but he had no way of knowing. He tried to keep himself distracted in the interim. Training with Nell, talking with Aizen, that sort of thing. Even so, it felt like something was missing. And his hunger persisted. Alas, such thoughts did little to divert the cold steel currently hurtling toward his face. Right. Should probably dodge that. Meh. She's still slow. With a small smile sighed the bemused blonde planted both hands in his pockets and bent backward at the knees, leaving his spine neatly parallel with the ground. From said position he had the perfect angle to watch his foe hurtle past and above him, body fully extended, unable to arrest their momentum, unable to dodge. Long green hair tickled his nose. Her eyes met his, widening in surprise. Naruto couldn't help but wink up at her. Nothing personal, Nell. He whirled and drove a knee into her stomach. She rocketed up into the air with a yelp, only for him to meet her there, one leg raised high over his head, silhouetted against the fake sun above. Steeling his heart against the cry of pain that was sure to follow, he brought that axe kick crashing down on Nell's back. She rocketed down, hurtling to the dunes below. A pillar of sand heralded her landing, spearing high into the air. 3 seconds passed. Another now. His lips pursed in a frown as he descended to the lip of the crater he'd created. Hey, you alright down there? A dull crackle of sound was his only warning. He laughed and hopped in place, tucking his knees into his torso, colorful robes fluttering in the passage of her blade. It missed him by the narrowest margin. Sandal-clad feet alighted atop the flat of her blade, balancing atop the slender steel. It would be the simplest thing to pivot and kick her in the face, to drive his victory home. He didn't want to. Any chance we could call this here? Don't hesitate. She chided him. Hit me. I can take it. Reluctantly, he complied. Nell took his kick like a soldier. She didn't make a sound, Even as she hurtled backwards, even when her body struck one of the many crimson pillars dotting the landscape, burst through it, then came crashing out the other side. From this distance he didn't see so much as a scratch on her. She climbed to her feet, dusted off her white robes, and nodded once. Her smile told him he'd impressed her. The reminder had the back of his neck burned. "We done?" He called out to her, voice ringing across the wastes. "I really don't want to hurt ya." She hurtled out of the smoke and drove a fist into his face. He crashed back head over heels, laughing all the way. Nell spat a zero at him as he flew. He casually pivoted in the air and kicked the crimson blast away, never once using his arms. It detonated in a dune, showering them with sand. "See?" he continued, lowering his left leg. "Reflexes are still sharp as ever. Sharper even. I'm a full second faster than before." She puffed her cheeks out at him in a rare pout. "You're not going to use your hands, are you?" Why would he? He'd agreed to the condition just this morning. Wasn't about to break it. "Nope," he sang back. "This is training for you as much as it is me." He wasn't sure how long they'd been at this. Neliel's idea of training left little to be desired. She could be downright ruthless when the situation called for it, but she didn't show any signs of slowing. Even with the handicap he'd given her today, she seemed determined to go at it all day, determined to improve, to keep her skills from rusting, to excel in all things. Almost made him admire her drive, it did. At least she made some semblance of sense. Better. She crossed the distance in an instant to appear at his side. "You're getting the hang of Sonito. Really don't need it, you know." He shrugged for what felt like the umpteenth time. "I've got speed aplenty already." This from the boy who can barely use a zero. She flicked his nose and arched a slender brow when he squawked at her. "You're strong, but you still falter when it comes to some Arrancar techniques. I haven't even seen you use a decent Garganta yet." He frowned at her. "'Cause I don't need to. I don't even know how to get to this human world you keep telling me about. I'll figure it out sooner or later." "Must you?" Of course he must. Because he didn't feel dead, therefore he wasn't. He'd been starving for ages now, hunger gnawing at his insides. Honestly, if he didn't eat some proper food soon, he was going to lose his mind. Hell looked like she wanted to argue the point further, only to abstain. "Let us change the subject for now. What's he like?" "Lord Aizen, I mean." Naruto paused, brought up short by the sudden inquiry. "You're asking me that? Now? It's been a bit. You spend more time with him than anyone else here." She held up a finger to forestall another argument. "Even the second and first espada are seldom granted an audience with him. You're the two of you speak nearly every day. I find myself curious." She wasn't going to let this go, was she? Nell might act soft, but beneath that gentle smile she had a spine of steel. "He's different," he said at last, bright eyes swiveled to regard him. "Different how?" "Not sure I can explain it properly." He scratched the back of his head and plunked down to the sand. "It's kinda complicated, you know." She smiled, sitting beside him. "Then simplify it." "Fine." The man might be a mystery to most, but most couldn't sense emotions the way he could. Aizen felt alone, most of the tone. As though he stood apart from everyone else. Not by choice or will or any such thing, but simply because he had been born that way. Some might say he'd been destined for such from the moment of his birth. His thoughts cut from a different cloth, meant going against the grain, that sort of thing. To hell with that. You made your own destiny. So can he. True. Of course, he could hardly tell Nell that in so many words. She wouldn't understand. So he settled for the simple route. Lonely. Nell's brow shot up, but he didn't stop. "He's a bit of a talker, but I think I've got a feel for his motivations." He turned and looked out across the sands, to which she followed his gaze. "Don't get me wrong, he's been behaving since our bargain, but it doesn't feel like he's trying to be a prick about it or anything." "Bah!" A hand flung up in exasperation. "He keeps asking my opinion about stuff. I ain't used to it. Some might say that's what friends do." "Friends? Us?" Naruto squinted her way. "Dunno if I'd call him that. Not yet, at any rate. Don't worry, the second he tries to pull one over on me, bum." He smacked a fist into his open palm. "I'll knock his lights out." Nell favored him with a small, mysterious smile. "You really would, wouldn't you?" "Well, yeah. I don't go back on my word." HMHMHM. She laughed lightly to herself and surprised him by standing. "You truly are an anomaly." You exist outside the ranking of the Espada. You claim not to be dead, but you've allied yourself with us nevertheless. I wonder what some might say of that, yet for all there are some who would challenge you, he scoffed. No surprise there. She pivoted and touched a hand to her sword with intent. Which is precisely why you must be prepared. This again? I'm no closer to understand why I'm here than I am to finding my release state. Neliel thumbed her chin. You must have a one. All Arrancar do. Some have too. She really wasn't going to let this go, was she? What's yours then? Her smile startled him in its sheer purity. Would you like to see? Naruto felt his face burn. There was something in her words, the way she said them. It sounded personal. Intimate. He wasn't sure why. He'd never seen an Arrancar release their sword before. Everyone he'd bothered to ask had been cagey about it, especially that Ulquiorra guy. Truly, he didn't understand why. Palming his face, he looked away. Why you gotta say it like that? An Arrancar's release is no laughing matter. Neliel elaborated without hesitation, her words taking on a lecturing tone. Indeed, it's a very personal thing. It reveals what we were before as hollows, adding that power to our own. Doing so enhances us, strengthens us, releases our inhibitions and our limits. When he didn't respond, she planted a hand on her hip. Do you truly wish to see me? The other reached out for him. This is not something I would offer in jest. He reached and clasped it. I do, very well. Bright eyes sparkled as she pulled him to his feet. Perhaps a practical lesson wouldn't hurt. Her sword slid into its sheath with a sigh, notching its guard now as he looked on. You seem to learn best after you've seen something firsthand. Well, you're not wrong. Watch closely now, she whispered softly. And don't tell anyone about this. His eyes tracked her zanpakuto, taking it in as it cleared its emerald scabbard once more. He noted the light green hilt, a guard that rather resembled crescent moons joined at the back. As he looked on, Neliel raised her blade up horizontally, placing a hand against the flat edge of her blade. Pale pink smoke began to sizzle, glowing in a faint haze. Naruto looked on, entranced. Nell closed her eyes. Inhaled. Exhaled. And then. Declare. Gamuza. Her words were the catalyst. The second she spoke, that smoke swelled into a blistering burst of raw energy. Violet light swelled forth to envelop her, tearing at sand itself, a radiance so bright Naruto found even he couldn't bring himself to stare into it overlong. Finally he had to look away. This is a resurrection. Nell's voice rang through the fog. Behold, she swept a hand through the smoke. His jaw clicked open. Damn, in her true state Neliel took the form of a graceful armored centaur. Her hollow mask's horns curved outward, framing the sides of her face. Likewise, her shoulders stood sheathed by brilliant white spalders that flowed across her shoulder blades, to her neck. Gleaming white gauntlets completed the ensemble, flowing up into a matte black material to protect her hands. Her sword was perhaps the most startling change of all. That once simple katana had since been replaced by a looming double-bladed lance. Looked like she knew how to use it too. All in all, she rather resembled as well as reminded him of a juicer straight out of a storybook, albeit far more deadly. Do you understand now, Naruto? She hefted her massive weapon his way, considering him with stern, sad eyes. This is what it means to be an Arrancar. We are not human. None of us are. We never will be. Simply speaking, the words almost seemed to wound her, somehow. It is best to accept this, as I have. Embrace it, but don't let it define you. How did he respond to that? How could he respond? She cantered forward and touched a hand to his cheek. You'll understand someday, Naruto. He looked away. Not sure I wanna, perhaps. However, that being said, with neither word nor warning, Nell shifted her weight on her hind legs and reared back, putting distance between them. It is possible to surpass your resurrection as well. Suddenly, that sad smile of hers gained a grim edge. I could go one step further if I really wanted to. This bulky form has limits. In truth, I much rather prefer the second state beyond it. A vicious sense of pressure reared its head over him, bringing with it a different sort of tension. His eyes bulged. You mean there's more? She smiled softly. Allow a lady some secrets. Now dodge. His hackles rose. Her arm swung back. Don't you throw that at me. Lanzador Verde, it seems you enjoyed yourself today, more or less. Naruto rolled his shoulder, working the kinks out of it as he traipsed inside. Got myself smacked around a bit. Suppose it's my own fault. Hardly the greeting he'd expected from Aizen, but there it was. The man seemed to enjoy surprising him these days, often arriving at the strangest times. He'd taken to appearing out of the blue. Really, he shouldn't have been surprised to find the man lurking in his quarters. He had nothing to hide, so what did it matter? No, it did matter, because Aizen never, ever came to his quarters. Not once, in the entire time since they'd formed their unlikely little partnership. He knew the man wanted something from him. He often did these days. Lowering his guard here would be a mistake. Best keep himself sharp. Sure enough, he wasn't surprised. Would you mind looking into something for me when you have the chance? He sighed. Alright, I'll bite. Who? Where? When? In hindsight, he really shouldn't have asked that. With a smile, his comrade held up a worn photograph for him to see. Naruto's brow furrowed. Aizen, I know that look. Why are you so interested in this kid? You wound me. His manners were smooth as cream. I mean him no harm. I simply wish to accelerate his growth. A dark fracture split the afternoon sky of Karakura town. Were anyone to glimpse the phenomenon from afar, they would have been treated to a most curious sight indeed. For that fracture gradually spread into a crack, forcing the very sky itself to part. In time it became a flowing fissure, then an outright hole in reality itself, stretching out across the horizon before widening dramatically. Within a minute it was an outright cavern. Two figures could be seen standing within its darkened depths, a man and a woman. The taller of the duo stretched his arms and hummed a merry tune. Ah, fresh air. Finally, some color. I was losing my mind in that washed-out world. Really, Naruto? Nell found herself hiding a small smile behind her right hand as she watched her companion stretch to his heart's content. For all his strength and power, Naruto could be surprisingly innocent at times. Do you truly find it that impressive? Well, we're human, ain't we? He winked her way and she cursed herself for the heat searing up her neck. Humans need sunlight and fresh air. We can't lurk about in the dark all the time, you know? And I don't know about you, but I'm starving. Another curiosity. He shouldn't feel any hunger at all, yet he claimed to. Still on about that, are we? Yup. Naruto puffed up his cheeks and thumped his chest with a fist. No matter what you say, I still believe I'm a human being. And before you argue otherwise, so are you. Long lashes fluttered in a slow blink. Me? He granted her a lazy grin. I don't see anyone else here. How unexpected of him to say such. Naruto's bullish insistence on humanity aside, he never once called anyone else such. Not even Lord Aizen. For him to openly refer to her as such, that was new. Perhaps he was being more open now that they were well and truly away from Hueco Muendo. The notion humbled her and confused her. What makes you say that? You're nice. He turned his gaze toward the sun, basking in it. Wind whipped forth at his blonde bangs. And besides, you have a heart. Neliel most certainly did. She felt it skip a beat now. Ulquiorra would argue otherwise. Ain't talking about that gloomy grump. His finger jutted out to poke near her collarbone, just above where a human heart should be. I'm talking to you. You're my partner. Nell felt her pulse spike. Her eyes widened. Narrowed now as his hand withdrew. Did he even realize what such a statement meant among hollows? No, of course not. He didn't know their ways. How could he? For all his claims to humanity, he'd been reborn as an Arrancar. Even so, to call someone what he just had, well. She was interested in him, intrigued by him even, but this was much too sudden. To his credit, Naruto noticed her expression and frowned, unwilling to exist the Garganta as she hadn't. He leaned back into the portal. Stuck my foot in my mouth again, didn't I? Nell worried her lower lip between her teeth. You should choose your words more carefully. To call one a partner among hollows, even as Arrancar, that means something. She hesitated, but seeing no comprehension in his eyes, took the plunge. It goes well beyond the bond between an espada and fraction, which you and I are not. Yeah. His head bobbed. We're equals, heat. Flame. Shame. Neliel made embarrassed Nell noises. He squinted at her. I feel like I'm missing an awful lot of context here. How to tell him without making a fool of herself? She couldn't think of any such way. Mates. In the end she squeaked the word out, covering her face with both hands to peek through her fingers. To call us partners, equals, implies that we are a mated pair. Oh. Naruto blinked. flushed. Oh. Here at last, comprehension dawned across his face. His head snapped to the side, either unable or unwilling to look her in the eye. I mean, you're real pretty and all, nice too, and I like being around ya, but… He scratched the back of his head and looked to her at last with a rueful chuckle. She didn't miss the faint tint of pink dusting his cheeks. Ain't marriage a bit sudden? Her brain fizzled. And marriage? Gods above, he could be such a boy sometimes, speaking without thinking. Well, yeah? His grin was more than a little embarrassed. Mom always said I should settle down with a nice girl. Seems like a human thing to do, you know? 1,000 tiny Neliels cried out in her mind. Forward ho, me hearties! This ship is setting sail, I wouldn't mind. Judging by his expression, she'd said that aloud. Naruto's brows shot up into his hair. What was that? Nothing. She spun away to hide her steaming red face, cursing herself for the slip. Yikes. A wild part of her hollow half warmed to his words, wanting to jump him here and now. The human in her remained more flustered than anything else. Already she could feel herself losing to base instinct. This was all his fault. She'd spent too much time with him. He'd corrupted her. Ruined her. She'd been a prim and proper errand before Naruto came along, no interest in romance or any such thing. Losing Dando Chaka and Confronting Nnoitra and Sailaporo's machinations had wounded her heart, and she'd no intention of ever opening it to another again, or so had been her intent. He'd changed that. Made her feel wanted. Needed. Now an insidious little voice nudged her. What was the harm? Couldn't she have something for herself? Lord Aizen wouldn't care. If anything, he might encourage it. He'd mentioned some passing interest in half-breeds prior to this request. Could hollows have children? Oh. Don't think that. Too late. Her mind was away. She could imagine them now, grinning girls with green hair and bashful boys who would look like Nell? Way. She snapped back to reality with a squeak. Right. Must focus. They had a task to attend. It's nothing. I'm fine. Naruto eyed her closely. If you say so, I do say so. She shook her head furiously to stymie the rising tide. Don't think about it. Don't get ahead of yourself. You really are dangerous. She muttered to herself. I need to be wary of that silver tongue. She realized her mistake a moment later. Bleh! Naruto stuck his tongue out, reveling in her blush. Nell kicked out at his leg and he withdrew, laughing. With that, she felt a modicum of self-control return. So? She asked of him, where should we start? Don't worry about that. He stepped out of her garganta with a shrug and strode across the air, forcing her to follow him or be left behind as he descended to the street below on a series of invisible steps. I've got this. But first things first. He sniffed once, twice, thrice now, scenting the air like a fox. Where's that smell coming from? Oh dear. Naruto's head whipped toward an open alley. There! He lunged forward with a whoop of delight, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Rayamaman! Urahara twitched. He'd sensed something just now. Well, that can't be a good thing. The hollow crumbed, cleaved in two by a single blow, its body split in half and dissolved, leaving nothing behind but a fading scream. Ichigo shouldered his sword with a grimace. Try as he might, he'd never gotten used to that. It was so damn strange. Monsters shouldn't dissolve like that. Even if they couldn't be seen by normal people. Bastards like this thing shouldn't exist. Rukia had tried explaining that to him once, but he still didn't much understand it himself. Suffice to say, the only good hollow was a dead hollow. Not bad, Ichigo. He preened a little at Rukia's praise. This was nothing. And really it wasn't. Felt like he was growing stronger every day. On to the next then? He turned a quizzical look her way. Odd. She seemed to be staring past him. Oh, Rukia? You alright? You're spacing out. Move, you fool. Too little, too late. Rayamaman. Something blindsided Ichigo from the left. By the time he registered their presence, it was over. A body smacked into him at speed. Stars, entire galaxies, burst before his vision. Then, quite suddenly, he was airborne, sent flying with impossible force. It was a short-lived flight. His face struck a wall. Slid down it. Sorry about that. A youthful voice crowed through his ringing ears. Strong hands nudged him onto his back. Righted him. Pulled him up. Didn't see ya there. You're not bleeding too bad, are ya? Ichigo felt a chill in the air. A shadow fell over him. He pivoted in place. Where once there had been an empty street behind him, it was empty no longer. Someone stood before him, a man in bright clothes. There was a hole in his chest, bits of bone plastered to the side of his face. Sweat ran down his brow. How did he sneak up on me? What even is he, Naruto? A green-haired woman clad in white and black alighted beside him. You mustn't rush off like what? The blonde frowned. Nell? You look like you've seen a ghost. Silence reigned supreme. The woman saw him. Nudge this Naruto guy. Is that him? He recognized him too, apparently, because that grip on his hand became ironclad. Ah, damn it. 5 firm fingers clamped down on his shoulder, tightening in a vice. I didn't think we'd actually find him this early. He tried to pull back, but he held fast. You must be Kurosaki Ichigo. Substitute Shinigami, right? At his dumbstruck nod, his smile became decidedly chagrined. Sorry about running you over, and I'm really sorry to rush this out of the blue, but well. Would you kindly die? Movement. It all happened so fast. He heard the dull crack of sound, felt it now as open palms slammed into his face and caught his chin. His body flipped backwards through the air, struck a power line, crashed back to the ground. All this in an instant. His very soul ached from the sudden shock. What was that for? Sturdier than you look. The blonde squinted down at him. Good to know. Still, what's with that ridiculous sword? Is that supposed to be your Zanpakuto? Why haven't you released it? Release what now? The hell were you talking about? Really? His foe's face fell, smiling wiped away. Are you seriously that much of a rookie? This won't even be fun. A lone finger rose, red light swirling at the tip of his digit, growing larger with each passing second. What had Rukia called that? Zero? The sight of it left him stricken. He couldn't move. Why couldn't he move? Try to dodge this, Ichigo. If you don't, pale fire crash, a sudden Kido smacked the back of his head. Baleful blue eyes swung to the side. Do you mind? Rukia lowered her arm, palms spitting smike. Not another step, see this? He made a point of raising his foot and planting it down. This is me stepping. Another Kido slapped him in the face. He scowled at her. Could you not, squirt? Class is in session. Nell? The green-haired woman moved in an instant, faster than he could see, seizing his comrade by the throat. Ichigo lunged her way, only to find himself blocked once more. Rukia! You damn hollow! Let her go. She's not a part of this. I'm not a hollow. I'm Naruto. And you? The man scoffed as his companion the girl over her shoulder and growled at him. You're reactive, Ichigo. He swung his blade with his might, only to find it caught. What are you talking about? He strained against him to no avail. The hell I am. If anything, I'm proactive. No. Clawed fingers tightened around his blade. I can sense your feelings, and I've got the measure of you now. You're doing this all wrong. Frankly, it's sickening. Whiskered cheeks dimpled in a scowl. You keep talking about protecting others, but what can you protect with a brittle blade like that? Cracks scrawled across his nameless sword. Even now you're hesitating. They slammed their forehead against his, eyes blazing. I could kill you right now, if I really wanted to. Maybe I should. Might even be a mercy. Still won't uneasel your sword? Fine. His shoulders slumped. I give up. There's no helping you like this. Guess we'll be doing this the hard way. Was this guy for real? He couldn't tell if he was joking not anymore. He struck out. Sparks flew as he struck the man in the chest. A blonde brow rose. You think that after everything else, something like this hurts? No. He shook his head slowly, blonde bangs swaying from side to side. No, no, no. This doesn't even tickle. As he looked on the tiny cut closed, flesh winding its way back into existence. When was the last time you took a good hard punch to the face? I can tell just by looking at ya. You don't know the meaning of pain. But that's alright. I'm gonna show ya. Bam! Thruck. What's gonna happen when you face someone strong, someone like me, and nobody's there to save you? What will you do then? A knee slammed into his gut, folding him in half. I'll tell you! Another blow, clenched knuckles cracking across his face, rocking him to the side. Fight. Back. You have things to protect, don't you? He kicked out, launching him through a building. Don't hesitate. A spinning kick sent him skidding back the way he'd come. Don't doubt. Don't ask yourself why. Just fight. How else can you protect your family, let alone yourself? His shadow loomed large over him, filling him with dread. The world slowed to an agonizing crawl as his arms swept up. This was it. Death. He was going to die, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. Need some help, amateur? A low, bemused voice trickled in his ear. I'd be willing to lend you a hand if you asked nicely. It all happened so fast. He beheld a pale figure in his mind's eye grinning from ear to ear. It looked a lot like him actually. An awful lot like him. Who are you? A ghostly hand touched his back. Finally, heard me did you? Golden eyes gleamed as a pale chin came down over his shoulder, framed by a merry cackle. I thought you'd never ask, partner. After all, I am. It rang in his ears like a clarion call. The name tore out of the Reaper, with a roar as he swung his blade forward. Zangetsu. Naruto was smiling as the light enveloped him. Why? Why was he smiling? Why did he look so damn proud of him? Ichigo didn't have time to celebrate. Red light bloomed, cutting through his attack. His world erupted in a haze of pain. Getsuga Tensho. Daw, look at you! Already learning your first move. Naruto clapped happily, grinning like the cat that caught the canary and slaughtered its entire family. You're growing up so fast, Strawberry. Still gotta work on your aim, though. Case in point. Think fast. His knee crashed up and Ichigo folded down over his limb like wet cardboard. A strangled gasp fled from the Reaper's lips. Naruto tutted once, patted his head, and brought his arm around, delivering an almighty elbow to the back of his would-be adversary's skull. Momentum did the rest and left Kurosaki's left his face intimate with asphalt in a way no self-respecting Shinigami desired. And yet despite that, he got up again. Truth be told, Naruto felt a strange sense of satisfaction about it all. Because you see, each time he knocked Ichigo down, the boy dragged himself to his feet. There it was again. Blasting him with a weak Zero only served to confirm his efforts. Kurosaki was getting stronger. Faster. Adapting. He hadn't been able to use that Getsuga Tensho of his until just now. His style was still crude for the time being brutish even, but the same could be said of him once, couldn't it? He only had more substance and style thanks to Neliel's rigorous efforts. Given the chance to improve, to be properly taught, he surely would. Speaking of which, a distant explosion had him craning his neck toward the southern edge of Karakura town. Well, she's certainly fulfilling her end of the bargain. Oh. His words peaked into a laugh as Zangetsu whistled by and shaved a strand of blonde hair just above his forehead. Much better, Strawberry. Almost got me that time. A wordless war was his only warning before the substitute Shinigami pivoted and struck at his face, blade wreathed in blue light. Stop calling me that. Much to the young man's chagrin, it crashed down into an open palm. Not a single drop of blood was spilled. That much hadn't changed. Even with this strange recovery of his, he hadn't been able to injure him. Not once. Not then and certainly not now. Merry blue eyes peeked out from behind the blade as he twisted it in his grasp. I will when you make me. Even now, Ichigo didn't give up. He braved this blade with both hands. Zangetsu howled with blue light and the world went white. The ensuing explosion devastated the street, kicked up a cloud of smoke and did jack all to move him. Huh. Naruto squinted, blinking spot away from his vision. Not bad. That one made me feel all nice and toasty. What else you got? A roaring wave of blue burst out of the mist and snapped his head to one side. No pain, only the vague sensation of forced movement. Impressive. Most impressive, but still not enough. He rode with the force of the blow and snapped a vicious kick into the space he knew his adversary occupied. The dull crunch of 3 ribs was his reward. Ichigo rocketed out of the smoke, struck the street 3 times, skipped across block like a flung stone, struck a building with an awful crack. Somehow the poor house held. The boy's bones didn't. He slid down its broken edifice with nary a sound. Naruto counted to 3. 3 more now, then finally hit the count of 9. Alighting upon a nearby lamppost, he looked down him the battered boy. You finally done over there? Sure enough, his words reactivated the ravaged Reaper. A string of angry curses followed. Zangetsu planted itself in the street. From there he used the massive blade as leverage to hoist himself upright. Wasted and gasping for air, he nevertheless hauled himself to his feet. Not yet. Good. He couldn't help but clap his hands, applaud his determination. That's the way, Ichigo. Never give up. This substitute Shinigami had spirit. Naruto could respect that much. Admire it even. Ichigo really didn't know when to quit. No, that wasn't it. He knew he was outmatched here. But he didn't let that faze him. He kept pushing through, trying to make a miracle happen. Perhaps that was the source of his strength. He kept fighting because he felt he had to. Stopping now wouldn't help anyone. They both knew that. Fear here meant an ugly death. Hesitation was defeat. The ghost of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Hesitation is defeat, huh? Ichigo righted himself with an irritated snarl. What are you talking about? He laughed a little. Just reminiscing about the good old days. Whatever his Zanpakuto was, Kurosaki was remarkably in sync with it. If it weren't for that, he would have keeled over hours ago. That he managed to persist in the face of such odds, well. It warmed his heart. Nell would say a dead man couldn't have a heart, but even he still didn't believe himself to be dead. Getsuga Tenshu, sloppy, but definitely an improvement. Naruto laughed and jumped aside with a low whistle, grinning from ear as vicious azure wave annihilated the lamppost he'd been perched upon. It howled up into the sky and all but eviscerated a passing cloud. You bounced back quickly from that last attack, too. Not missing a beat, he kicked off the air and launched himself forward with a merry cackle. Show me more. Zangetsu met his fist head-on. The blade didn't crack, nor did his footing waver. Good. His will remained strong in the face of adversity. He'd need that for the battles to come. Help me, damn it, he'd whispered to someone just now. Oh? Who are you talking to? The Reaper ducked and cut out at his legs, forcing him to hop over the blade. None of your damn business. I'm thinking it is. He drove a midair kick into his solar plexus, smashing him through a trash bin. Kurama sighed. He'll plateau at this rate. Don't leave things hanging like this. Naruto clicked his tongue at him. The hell you want me to do? Intimidate him. Give him a reason to fight. I ain't the best actor, you know. Try. Fine. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for today. He adopted what he hoped was a menacing smile. Keep at it, Kurosaki. Get nice and strong for our rematch, because if you don't, he raised a hand, finger pointing his way, and died a little inside. You won't need to worry about me. Your enemies will slaughter everyone and everything you hold dear. It was an empty threat, of course. He'd never do any such thing to anyone, and he certainly wouldn't let Aizen, but poor Kurosaki didn't know that now, did he? As far as he knew, his threat was good as gold. Ah man, I hate acting like the bad guy. Sure enough, something hardened in the young man's face. I won't let you! His lunge was even faster than before, but anger alone couldn't help. Zangetsu couldn't pierce his skin. Then get stronger, Kurosaki. He kicked him away with a forced sneer, one that felt alien to him. You have your Shurikai, now achieve Bankai no. Go beyond. He knew quite well what a Bankai was, thanks to Nell's rigorous tutelage, and he happily imparted that now to the young Reaper. Don't just rely on your sword either. Branch out. Adapt. Gain the strength to make me bleed, to trample me the way I trampled you today. When someone tries to take what's rightfully yours, you take everything from them in return. That's what a king does. Why you? A vicious headbutt sent him reeling anew. Was it his imagination just now, or did those brown eyes flash gold? Regardless, the expression he wore was that of a warrior, not a boy. Good. Just a little more now. Naruto closed with him again. There it is. That's the look. Another punch rattled Ichigo's blade. Once. Twice. Thrice. He wailed on him with no restraint. Ichigo's stance held firm throughout it all, each blow blocked by the blade. Sadly, the same couldn't be said for the street. It finally burst beneath the force of his attack, and the moment it did, his footing faltered. A rousing right hook caught him square in the face and launched him away once more. This time, gravity lost its grasp upon him. His back struck a pair of power line. His still sparking soul hurtled through them, smashed into someone's roof, alighted there for a moment and collapsed. A dull thud heralded his return to the ground. Well, I guess that'll do it. It's been fun, Strawberry. This time, Naruto didn't have to feign his smile. Be seeing ya. His part done, he planted both hands in his pockets and waltzed away from the unconscious Reaper. Probably better this way. He'd accelerated his growth just like Aizen asked, and with no casualties to speak of. All in a day's work. With hope, Kurosaki would learn from this and become stronger still. Now to check in on Nell. She'd probably kept that other Shinigami busy, sure, but he hadn't heard from her in a while now. Blood splashed across his cheek. Naruto paused, touched a hand to his face, mildly surprised to find a small cut there. How'd that happen? Kurama sighed. On your left, fool. He craned his neck back. The stubborn Shinigami had found his feet once more. Stranger still, he'd flanked him somehow for all the good it did him. Poor kid looked like death warmed over. His robes were battered and torn, body hunched across his blade, head hanging and face hidden by his shaggy hair. He looked every bit like a walking corpse. And yet, you're still not done? Ichigo's head snapped up. The sight there chilled him. What was that? For some strange reason, half the boy's face now stood sheathed behind an eerie white-red mask, the eye of which gleamed a wild gold, encompassing more and more of his countenance as he looked on. That once resolute visage was twisted in a crazed grin. Zangetsu hung loose at his side, gripped not by the tang that served as its hilt, but by the bandages wrapping it. Dark energy flowed forth from the blade, not that of a Shinigami, but something else. Something stranger. It felt like a hollow. Yet for all that, Ichigo didn't go berserk. He stood his ground. Sorry, a distorted voice flowed forth from the Shinigami's grinning mouth. But I can't let you kill this guy yet. I just woke up, after all, just woke up. Do you have any idea how much you've pissed me off? Much to his confusion, Ichigo wagged a finger at him. Bad enough that I had to wrestle with old man bastard almost won too, but now I gotta deal with you. A rare hint of joy crept into Naruto's heart. Here and now, he could understand why Aizen was so fixated on this boy. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? Ha! The entity puppeteering Ichigo's body only grinned at him. Strange. It both was, and wasn't Kurosaki. He found his curiosity piqued regardless. You don't know the half of it. His sword swept out, conjuring a wave of dark red light. Naruto batted it aside into the sky. Frowned now as he felt it singe his palm. That's more like it. I can actually feel that. Ichigo yanked on Zangetsu's bandages, whipping the blade back into his hand. Give me a second, and all you be feeling is oblivion, that or disappointment. He shrugged. Go ahead, Ichigo. Flip that coin. See what happens. A crackle of movement was his only warning before Zangetsu came crashing down on the back of his head. He stopped it with a single finger. That lone digit folded over the blade, effectively locking it in place. With his free hand he calmly reached up, curled it into a claw, and, ah, come on! Ichigo recoiled with a snarl. What are you made of, pure metal? Might as well be. Naruto thrust his palm forward, Rasengan gleaming in hand. Time for you to sleep now. Usaniva. The jutsu struck the hollow-fied Shinigami at speed, crashing headlong into his chest with all the power of a hurricane. There could be no contest. Away he went, crashing through one building, another, a third now. Naruto watched him recede into the distance. Waited now, as his cries faded away, then fell entirely silent. Still no sign of him. Was it finally over? On a whim, he walked after the wayward reaper slowly. Just to be safe. Sure enough, he found Ichigo sprawled out beneath a mound of rubble. Lucky him. He'd crashed through an abandoned house. No casualties to burden his conscience. Somehow the boy was still conscious, if only just, judging by the angry noises he made. A quick touch, a flare of chakra, and he mended the worst of his wounds, bringing him back from the edge of death. You did good, Ichigo. He patted his head, unable to help himself. Real good. Train hard, and you'll never be this weak again. He reached down, and gave his mask a good hard flick with his index finger. It shattered like brittle glass, dull brown eyes squinted behind it. Damn it, what are you? Believe it or not, I'm your friend. Get some sleep, now. Another finger flick sent him under completely. Naruto took 3 long strides backward. A deep breath now. And then, Arg. He doubled over, clutching his head with a whine. That was so embarrassing. I aced like some cartoon villain. So cliché. I wanna die. There, it was for the best. The blonde kicked the ground. Best my ass. You give the speech next time. That was humiliating. Still, he'd left a lasting impression on the Reaper, and accelerated his growth, just like Aizen had asked. His favor was done. With some hope, a bit of skill and a pinch of luck, Kurosaki Ichigo would turn out just fine. Now it was time for some ramen. Wasn't it? Was he tempting Murphy's Law here? Kinda felt like he was, you know? He looked left. Now right, nary a soul in sight. Great, Naruto turned, craning his neck toward the same scent as before. Ain't nobody gonna stop me now. A cackling golden comet fell out the sky and crashed into him at speed. Down he went, smashed back first into the asphalt. What the hell? A rough voice growled above him as someone pressed a foot down on his throat. Is this what I get for listening to that four-eyed bastard? He said there was a strong hollow heroi. He blinked through bleary eyes and found a one-eyed man grinning down at him. And who was that sitting on his shoulder? Don't tell me you're dead after that. Oh, come on! Blue eyes blazed red and he bucked with all his might, tearing free from the trap. Get off me! He swung a fist upward. It met a jagged blade. Remarkably, it blocked him. The grinning man leered down at him. Now that's more like it, Neliel pitied the weak. Truly she did. She wasn't entirely certain why she felt this way, yet the feeling persisted, nagging at her. Doubtless she'd been much the same when she was alive, helping those who were less fortunate, protecting those incapable of protecting themselves, teaching hard-wrought lessons to those who refused to learn otherwise. Sometimes those lessons meant mercy. At other times, force was required. This little one was no different. Rukia Kachiki might have been strong, once, before she'd given up much of her power. Now how far she had fallen, and yet for all that, she threw herself at Nell time and again, determined to get past her. Get out of my way! I'm afraid I can't do that, Shinigami. Nell smiled softly sadly, as she brained the little reaper with her still-sheathed sword, sending her sprawling into the street once more. Don't worry. Our objective isn't to kill Ichigo Kurosaki. Or you for that matter. She raised a palm, letting a harmless Kido crash against her open fingers. It didn't even tingle. She waved her hand, letting the smoke fade away like so much steam. I do so dislike bullying the weak, but I've been asked to keep you busy in the interim. This would be so much easier for us if you just sat down. Don't underestimate me. Why wouldn't I? Neliel tilted her head toward Rukia. You're weak. She watched those words take root in the poor girl, a seed planted in the depths of her heart. My, but she looked furious now. Good. Maybe she'd learn to become strong again. Perhaps stronger still. But for that to happen, for Rukia to truly understand where she stood in the pecking order, she might have get a little rough. Naruto would understand, surely. This was necessary. This little one would never become strong otherwise. Another Kido smashed her harmlessly in the face. She sighed softly. Violence it was, then. How uncivilized. For what it's worth, I don't hate you, Shinigami. She set one hand to the hilt of her sword and unsheathed it slowly. Think of this as a learning experience. Of what? She smiled sweetly. The gap between you and I, to call what followed a fight well. It wasn't. Nell beat the girl down until she was wasted and gasping for air, her body left littered with countless cuts. To her credit, she tried to rise again. She simply lacked the strength to do so. Her left leg buckled now, and she went down in a heap. Poor thing couldn't even crawl forward. Have you learned now? Rukia growled at her from where she lay. Perhaps she had learned. Perhaps not. It no longer mattered. I do hope Naruto's alright. A deafening explosion rattled the world. Honestly. Nell palmed her face and sighed softly. He can be such a boy sometimes. You think so? A tan heel clipped Nell's head and her world went sideways. This man was a lunatic. Naruto swayed back with a hiss, giving ground as that jagged blade whisked over his head. A few stray strands of blonde hair fluttered through the air in his wake. He punched right through them and sent the Shinigami sprawling for all the good it did him. He tumbled away and came up swinging again. It wasn't at all like fighting Aizen, that one was slippery, but he at least had a rhyme and reason for everything he did. But this man, this Kenpachi Zaraki, didn't care for reason. Not for words nor wounds or the difference in their strength, not anything beyond battle. That made him damn hard to predict, and it didn't help that was actively trying not to kill him. The same couldn't be said for this crazed reaper. He just kept advancing, and he was getting stronger. Slowly but surely, for every wound he inflicted he got a little better, a bit faster. It wasn't enough to best him, but he was starting to notice all the same. For all the fire in him, the madman refused to stay down. He was relentless. Ordinarily, he would have respected that. The determination to never give up. Now? Not so much. Is this what it's like to fight me? Yes. Just more bloodthirsty. Who you talking to, Hollow? None of your business. He decked him in the face only for the Reaper to rush in and swipe at him with his sword. No form, no substance. He just swung the blade around like a metal bar. A very dangerous bar and one he wanted to avoid at all costs. He doubted the man could cut him, but he could probably still hurt him. Impact and momentum were a hell of a thing. This couldn't go on. At this rate, he would have to kill this man. He didn't want to. He really, truly didn't. But if this continued, a good fight. For the longest time, it was all he sought. Pretty much the only thing Zaraki Kenpachi had ever wanted, really. Someone strong for him to fight. No need to hold back. A chance to truly cut loose and wage war with all his might. Wasn't that what he wanted? No, maybe that wasn't quite right. A fight was good and all, but he craved more. A rival. Someone to push him to the edge and beyond. Someone he could fight again and again and again. A fighter who wouldn't snap like a stick. Well, he'd finally found one. And surprise, surprise, it wasn't a Shinigami but a Hollow. This bastard was different from the rest. For one, it almost looked human, not that he cared about that bit. More importantly, it didn't die one hit. I said, "Get off of me." A boot barreled into his chest, sending him skidding backward. His blade bit down in the street, spraying sparks as it killed his momentum. His head snapped up, the barest beginning of a grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. Now that's more like it. Damn good thing Uchiha had jumped off his shoulder. Now he could fight without having to worry about her. Because that damn Hollow was getting up again, and he didn't look happy. "Whoever you are," he growled, dusting himself off, "I don't have time for you. I've had enough. This ain't a warning, this is a promise. Buzz off. Or else. Promises, promises." He wasn't going anywhere. "Ain't ya gonna draw your sword?" "Don't got one." The Hollow shrugged. "Don't need one either. Not for you." "Ha! Beepy bastard. Let's see." A fist shot out and smashed hard into his ribs, producing a startled grunt. Momentum caught up with him a moment later to launch him down the street. He was still hurtling through the air when a golden meteor crashed down from the heavens, stomping him into the asphalt in a shower of dirt and dust. Anyone else would have been worried. Maybe even wounded. Not him. "Give up." A sandal-clad foot stomped on his windpipe. "Or so help me, I'll knock you out." "Never." Zaraki laughed at him. The blonde balked. That moment of hesitation cost him. He almost didn't see his jagged blade sweep out the smoke. The Hollow dodged aside out of reflex more than anything else. Moment he did, he stopped putting pressure on his throat. "Dumbass. You didn't give your enemy a chance to breathe, not even for a second." Just how green was he? Kenpachi made him pay for it, grabbed him by the ankle, and whipped him head first into a building. Real shoddy construction. Damn thing crumbled like a house of cards around the Hollow, swallowing his prey whole. Zaraki climbed to his feet, idly rubbing his neck as he did. Good. He could still breathe. Damn thing hurt like a bitch, and he'd nave a nasty bruise there come tomorrow. But beggars couldn't be choosers. Disappointment warred with excitement in his head, and the former won out when his foe didn't emerge. A frown creased his scarred face. "What is that it?" he rumbled at the rubble. "You done already? It'd be real boring if you died on me now, Hollow. You're afraid this fight will be boring?" A low, muffled growl reverberated with the depths of the debris. "I'll spice it up for you then." The Rekigi erupted. No other word for it. Stones blasted in every direction, some even flew his way. Kenpachi lazily cut a large piece of mortar in half, only for the berserk blonde to come barreling through the severed halves and tackle him. A clawed hand closed around his face and smashed him down with a vicious yank. Then the Hollow ran, dragging him across the street, grinding his visage into the ground, tearing a furrow as he went. His good eye glared up at him only for it to end as quickly as it began. A savage spin launched him up into the air. He tumbled there for a moment, end over end, before he finally righted himself. TCH. He'd never been the best at this air-walking bullshit. The very second he found his balance, the Hollow was on him again. He swung wildly his way in a bid to create some much-needed distance, only for the whiskered warrior to catch the blade in his right hand. Sparks flew through the air as it ground to a halt in his fist. Huh. No blood. That was new. Cold blue eyes sought his with intent. You're making me angry, Shinigami. You won't like me when I'm angry. I disagree. He grinned down at him. This is far more fun. Give me all you've got. Fight. Bleed. Die. For some reason, that made the hollow scowl. That's not how life works. It does for me. That's a pity. His right hand snapped forward, bearing a spiral of blue light. Rasengan. And then there was pain. Zaraki didn't rightly see what happened next, but he felt himself shoot downward. His back kissed a wall, then smashed through that, followed by a building, a wall, now a building again. He heard someone start screaming somewhere behind him. Didn't give a damn. Finally he could move again, enough to drag himself up on one knee. His hand came away bloody. Heh. A grin tore across his scarred face. Been a while since I've seen this much my own blood. Gimme a minute. A heel swooped in at his face. He blocked it with his blade and felt the steel creak in his grasp as the street cratered underfoot. Red eyes leered down at him, harsh and slitted. Wait a minute, weren't they blue before? You want me to try? Fine. Zaraki didn't see the punch that flattened him, only felt it again. Like being on the receiving end of one of Old Man Yama's hits minus all that nasty fire. Pure pain. His head snapped back, blood flying from his lips. All he saw was a streak of those red, and then hey, where'd the ground go? Oh, there it was. He struck the dirt once, bounced, and came up swinging. It saved his life. The hollow ducked out of sheer reflex. He chambered a swing, and this time the bloody blonde bastard actually deigned to block within his arms. A second shower of sparks, just like before. He couldn't cut him. A laugh tore out of him. Another barrage of punches followed this time. He was able to stand his ground against them and get in one of his own. The hollow grunted in surprise and stumbled back. Give up? An amused noise filled Zaraki's ears, and it took him a second to realize the sound had come from him. Why? I'm finally starting to enjoy myself. You think this is fun? Wham, blam, slam, 3 blows in less than a second. Liver. Kidney. Spleen. Zaraki buckled with a grunt but didn't go down. Never. Not with a fight like this. Still, a rare hint of concern bled through his euphoria. This was great, grand even, but this shit was actually starting to hurt. He wasn't bleeding too badly yet, but his bones ached. If this continued, a soft voice rang through the back of his head. A girl's voice. You'll die. Zaraki paused. Ha! Was he hearing things? Where are you looking? Pain bloomed in the back of his skull as another supersonic punch hammered him down. He felt something shatter in his torso. Felt like his ribs. Clawed fingers slashed out, bloodying the side of his neck. His world went blurry for a second. He grit his teeth, grunted, and fought on, trying to crush the hollow down with an overhand smash. No dice. Slippery bastard stepped out of the way and raised a hand. Scarlet light swelled within, growing larger and brighter with each passing moment. What happened? He shouted over the rising hum. You were talking all that good shit a second ago. Red light blazed before his vision. He recognized it. Zero, cut it! Kenpachi braved his blade with 2 hands out of pure instinct. It saved his life. A torrent of red light parted on either side of him as the Zero slammed into him full force. The heat seared his skin, threatened to cook him where he stood. A growl boiled in his lungs. He felt his sleeves smolder away in the blast alongside a good bit of his robe. Didn't matter, he just had to cut it. Simple as that. A roar ripped through his throat and he followed through, severing the blast in half. It rushed past him unabated. Smoke sprayed across his vision as the blast devastated the buildings around him. Gasping for air, he crashed down to a knee to catch his breath. He didn't feel tired. If anything, he felt great. He'd never been more alive. That's right. Remember. There it was, that damn voice again. Surpass your limits. Get stronger. Better. The hollows surged out of the smoke for him again. This time, he was ready for him. He took one hand from his sword's hilt and decked him right in the nose. A startled grunt greeted him. He grinned and spun, then swung down with both hands. Whether through arrogance or blind bloody luck, the hollow didn't get out of the way in time. Blood sprayed through the air. Too shallow. Kenpachi knew at the moment the hollow touched a hand to his shoulder and frowned. All right, he allowed, flexing his wounded arm. You're one determined bastard, I'll give you that. I'm gonna have to try now, you know? He'd been holding back too. Could this day get any better? Yes, excellent. Laughter bubbled out of Zaraki, dark and exultant, a deep, raucous laugh swelling through the air. I haven't had this much fun in ages. He raised his head, lone eye blazing a bright shade of gold. What did you say your name was, Hollow? Naruto. Turning his head aside, the Hollow rolled his wounded shoulder once. He couldn't quite keep the smile from his face either. Uzumaki Naruto. And don't call me a Hollow, I see how it is. The voice sounded decidedly sullen now, almost childish. You ask his name but not mine. She wasn't making any sense. Who are you? Do you want to know my name? And in a single blinding instant, Kenpachi Zaraki understood. That's a good name. Raising his ragged blade, he reached for his eye patch. I'll be sure to remember that. And to you, Naruto Uzumaki. His fingers curled around it ready to tear it free. Thanks to you, I can finally hear it. The blonde squinted at him, unable to understand. Hear what? Kenpachi grinned ear to ear, baring his teeth in a savage, shit-eating grin. In the same instant, he tore his eye patch free. A column of spiraling light burst his body to ravage the world. 2 words tore forth his lips, a declaration for all the world to hear. Drink. No Zarashi. Ha! Zaraki Kenpachi laughed. He laughed some more, laughed to high heaven, a great full-throated bellow of mirth he hadn't made since he was a child. Palming his face with one hand, he doubled over and continued to cackle, shoulders shaking, throat aching, until finally his eyes watered and his lungs burned. Why did he laugh, you ask? It was simple. You see, Zaraki was happy, absolutely giddy really. No, scratch that, he was downright delirious with glee. He was enjoying himself, truly enjoying himself as he hadn't in a long while, perhaps the first time in centuries. Because this was a fight. Better yet, he felt stronger. Like he'd broken down an invisible wall he'd never known existed until now. Somehow he knew this wasn't his peak. Not quite, not yet, nowhere near it, and still he couldn't help but laugh. So this was his shuriken. He considered the blade and slung it over his shoulder. Damn thing was big. Not that he minded. It felt light as a feather, like he'd found an old friend he never knew he had lost. Speaking of friends, oops. With a rueful grimace he looked back to the road, idly regarding the devastation he'd wrought there. In all fairness, he really hadn't meant to swing that hard. He'd carved a canyon in the street with his sword's release, mowing down his foe with it to kick up a cloud of dust and smoke. Oh, Hollow! He bellowed into the haze. Don't tell me that killed you, you're not half bad. Fresh laughter arose from the fog to answer him. I actually felt that, you bastard. The shroud cleared to reveal that damn Hollow Naruto, wearing a merry grin as he strode forth, clutching the bloody stump of his right arm. Heh. Bastard looked as happy as he felt. And that stump of his wasn't a stump for long. It regrew as he looked on, flesh and bones sprouting from the ruin of his elbow in an instant. Only the bloody stain on his torn sleeve remained. High-speed regeneration, huh? The Shinigami shouldered his sword with a smile. You're just full of surprises. What can I say? The Arrancar raised both arms in a shrug. I'm hard to kill. Good. It would be boring if he died easily. You know, he flexed his restored limb with a hum and began rolling his shoulder in a lazy circle. I oughta thank you. Sure, it's my fault for trying to tank that attack back there, but I'd almost forgotten what pain, actual real pain, feels like. A hand rose, fingers lazily clenching into a claw. So thanks again, for reminding me. Keeps me honest. Red light gathered in his palm with a sonorous hum. Let's see what the new sword of yours can do. A Zero burst forth from his fingers. Zaraki met the Zero head-on with his blade. He cut it. Right down the middle. Just like that. No Zarashi slammed down and the Zero parted like so much water wounded. The blast split before him, severed half-searing past to demolish a pair of abandoned buildings on the block behind him. Well, he hoped they were abandoned. Meh. Didn't matter. The old man probably had evacuated. Wasn't his concern. Naruto whistled. Not bad, that all you got? He leveled no Zarashi at him. There's ain't nothing I can't cut. Is that so? Grinning like a loon, the berserk blonde reached up to his mouth and bit his thumb. Let's see you slice through this. Blood swirled from the mangled digit and pooled in the air between them, manifesting itself in the ghastly shape of a strangely familiar spiral. Before his very eyes, red light became a brilliant blazing blue. Sapphire sparks scrawled through his air, mixed with the crimson flowing forth from his hand, growing larger and more powerful with each passing second. An ominous keening noise rose in the air. Unable to withstand it, the street began to crumble and rise around them, reacting to the sheer force of the blast he was conjuring. Now what did Nel call this Agano right? Naruto's wide grin practically split his face. Gran Rei Siro, Zaraki felt his heart soar at the sight. Now that's more like it. Shoot me, Naruto let the Siro fly. No, Zaraki slammed into it head-on with a hungry howl. This time there was resistance. His blade struggled in his grasp as it warred with the blazing blue blast, and he found himself sliding back half a pace, then another, his feet tearing great gouges in the street. Yes. Excellent. He might actually have to use both hands for the first time in forever. A palm settled on his back. Kenpachi stiffened, looking over his shoulder. I'm sorry, Naruto beamed back at him oh so very innocently, hair lofting in the maelstrom around him. Were you under the impression that I was going to play fair? With a cheeky grin, the blonde bastard shoved him forward into the blast and vanished. The brat Siro swallowed him whole, smoldering away his sleeves and burning him badly. His world faded to black, until, quite suddenly it didn't. Kenpachi jolted upright, eyes snapping open, and righted himself with a frown, only to find himself unharmed. No bruises. No injuries at all. His robes still smelled of singed cloth, but he wasn't even hurt. All around him buildings lay crisped and blackened, yet he was the only one unharmed. What the hell? How long you gonna sit there? He looked up to find the errand car not 3 yards away stalking down the street, hands in pockets. Need another catnap? Not a chance. He lunged at him, bringing his mighty cleaver crashing down with titanic force. Steel struck flesh and bounced off with a spray of sparks as Naruto parried with a palm, driving his blade high. There we go! The blonde bastard grinned up at him, whiskered cheeks dimply in thinly veiled delight. I can actually feel that. They traded blows like madmen, swinging for the fences. Him with his newly awakened blade, and the blonde with his bare hands. Back and forth they raged, two gods of death, caring nothing but the slaughter. Laughter began to burst free from Kenpachi once again, and he did nothing to throttle it, grinning as he slashed down at his foe's face. This time he was rewarded with a look of concern as Naruto twisted out of harm's way. Why were you dodging if I can't hurt you? Instinct mostly. He swayed under another sweep and boxed his ribs, drawing a grunt from him. My body moves before I can stop it, like this. An uppercut caught Kenpachi's chin and sent him spinning into the sky. A shadow fell over him. And this, he looked up. Time slowed to a crawl as he glimpsed the blonde above, hands linked over his head. His eyes weren't blue anymore. They were gleaming a strange shade of gold, his pupils strange horizontal slits, eyes dusted with an odd shade of orange. That was all he had time to see before his adversary struck back. No, Zaraki swept up to block, saving him from a fatal blow. Not so, the momentum behind hit. The hammer fist struck him from the sky, slammed him through a telephone pole, and drove his back into the street. Asphalt erupted like an overripe melon faced with heavy blow. He plunged beneath the earth. A water main burst as he struck a solid pipe, the impact of which soaked clean through. Naruto stood at the lip of the crater and whistled down at him, golden eyes fading back to blue. Wow! Didn't think you'd fly that far. Need a minute? Heh. Zaraki cut upward in a savage streak of golden energy, raw rates biting deep into his collarbone. Now it was Naruto's turn to grunt in pain. A startled noise ground between his teeth. He expected shock, fear, rage from at the very least. Instead, the blonde threw his head back and belted out a laugh. Better! His fangs flashed in the brisk afternoon air as the wound smoldered shut. Let's kick things up a notch. He hopped into the crater and slid down, kicking up dust as he went. Hope you like shadow clones. Both hands crossed into a strange symbol he didn't recognize. Because you're about to. Shadow hat now? He stalked up to meet him. Stop throwing words at me and attack already. Blue eyes sparked back into luminous gold. Have it your own way. 5 fists slammed into Kenpachi from opposite angles, forming the loose shape of a star. Spine. Chest. Lungs. Liver. Kidneys. He doubled over, spat blood, and slashed at them, only for Zaraki to taste hollow smoke. They didn't even try to dodge or resist in any way, shape, or form. The hell was that? Shinobi, pal. Naruto finished his descent, alighting not a yard away. Now let me see if I can mimic what you did earlier. His fingers clenched, forming a taut point together. Just bring it down like this. Zaraki's chest ruptured. It all happened so fast. He looked down, eyes bulging in confusion as he beheld the gaping wound, blinked. Now and then the pain was gone. He'd taken a lethal wound. He knew he had. The blood was still there, the tear in his coat painfully evident. But the wound was nowhere to be seen. There and gone in the span of a blink. Confused? Naruto crooned behind him. Don't be. You'll catch on soon enough. He swung Nozarashi at him with a snarl. The blonde swayed back, ducked, and smashed Keening's sphere into his chest. He crashed backward to a knee, fresh wounds tearing in his torso. Well. He heard a voice Nozarashi echo in his mind. So that's what he's doing. Clever boy. Kenpachi forced his eyes open again. Too late. His wounds were gone once more. For a second there I thought I was dead? Naruto's voice echoed behind him. You were, for a second there. I fixed you, don't worry. He pivoted, but the blonde was nowhere to be found in the fog of war, voice echoing endlessly. It's what I do, YC. I fix things. Stuff. People, you know. I can see your problem, Kenpachi Zaraki. You've subconsciously been holding yourself back, limiting yourself, and you don't even realize it. That's rude. Zaraki spun. He wasn't quite fast enough. Clawed fingers flashed before his face, obliterating his eyes. Something cool settled against his face, and just like that, they were restored. See? Came the Arrancar's merry voice. You're just a little faster now. Let's keep going. He felt pain in his throat as something severed his windpipe, and then that too was gone, replaced by a tingling numbness. Kenpachi slashed out with one hand and touched a hand to his neck. Blood, but again no wound. Exasperated, he slashed at him. Stop talking and fight me already. I am fighting you. Nozarashi whirled over his back, blocking clawed fingers. He glimpsed that deranged smile beaming back at him. A bead of sweat ran down his brow. Naruto kept pushing, forcing him back one step, then another. You're stronger now, but not quite at the level I need you to be. Ah, well? He shrugged. I'll just have to kill you a few more times until you're up to snuff. He ran him through with an arm. Blood spattered the street. It's a tricky thing, pushing someone to their brink, to their very limits, then pulling them back again. He heard footsteps behind him a split second before he healed him. Then he drove another spiraling sphere into his back and slammed him face first into the street. I'm a bit of an old hat at it by now. Frankly, I'm amazed it's taken you this long to notice. How many times have you died now? 5? 10? 20? Or maybe ac? His words cut off in a startled yelp as Kenpachi kicked him through a building. It bought him a moment's respite, but only just. The rubble had scarcely settled before he was free, spearing into him in a laughing human missile. Somehow he managed to bring Nozarashi around in time to smack him down, but the bastard got a punch that sent him reeling. They set their feet, grit their teeth, and rounded on one another. Then they were off and everything descended into murky madness. It became a no-holds-barred, knock-down, drag-out brawl. Power against power, speed for speed, determination versus determination. Red light crashed into gold, and he realized something else. You're holding back. Guilty. The blonde brought his hands together in a resounding clap, clasping both palms before his face in a low bow, simultaneously dodge an attack that should have cleaved him in half. I'm really trying not to kill you for keeps here. Nozarashi smacked him into the ground, leaving a decidedly Naruto-shaped impression behind. Alright, fine. He righted himself with a laugh. I'll give you a taste. He threw his head back and screamed. A pillar of golden light erupted from the blonde's body with a wordless roar, blasting Kenpachi backward to pierce the very heavens. Naruto's voice kept rising within it as his body burned bright, brighter, brightest still now, rattling the very foundation of Karakura town. It was like staring into the sun. He had to look away if only to keep himself from going blind. Spiritual pressure crashed down on his shoulders, rooting him where he stood, choking him, like an almighty ocean trying to squeeze the very life from his lungs. Zaraki Kenpachi should have felt terror, fear, horror, but he didn't. He was just so damn excited. Now that's more like it. Nell craned her neck. Oh dear. He's done it now. Rich golden eyes followed her gaze. Friend of yours, take it, Nell tooted softly. You got the drop on me, I'll give you that. However, her dark-skinned foe grinned at her. Well, well. Aren't you a sturdy one? Or maybe I'm a bit out of practice. They leaped at one another anew. She realized the trap and saw her foe's smirk too late. Now, Kisuk, behind! Not enough time. A rush of red light slammed into her side. Zaraki slashed through the smoke. You done over there? My damn ears are ringing. Sorry that took so long. I guess I'm out of practice. His rival, he couldn't call him anything less, now emerged resplendent, cloaked in golden light, body etched with eldritch black markings like some ancient warrior of yore. His eerie eyes remained gold, but now his pupils bore a strange cross shape to them, shining as though lit within. Even the whisker marks on his cheek had thickened somehow, lending him a more otherworldly appearance. He made no effort to approach him. Instead, he slung a bone-white staff. Where the hell had he gotten that? Over his right shoulder. The younger warrior blinked, balked at it, and did a double take. Huh! He heard him mutter, utterly taken aback. Where did you come from, and where have you been hiding all this time? Wait. His head shook side to side, as though he were arguing with some inner voice only he could hear. If I have you, does that mean I really died after all? Oh? Kenpachi raised a hand, feeling strangely sorry for him. You alright there? Sorry. Naruto looked back to him, grinning. I think I just had my worldview shattered and I'm about to have an existential crisis. Come on, then. He crooked a finger at him. Hurry up and attack me before I freak out. Didn't need to tell him twice. No, Zaraki smashed into Naruto's chest with incredible force, and failed to penetrate his hide. It was a good slash. Naruto grimaced as it struck. The street splintered and the earth cratered underfoot as it wedged against his skin. And yet, for all that, the Arrancar was neither wounded nor moved. He didn't seem all that surprised either. If anything, the kid looked almost disappointed. Naruto gazed at the blade. Frowned, just a little. Looked back to him now. Is that all you've got? He tilted his head as Nozarashi struggled in vain against his shoulder. Okay then. He took hold of the Zanpakuto with his free hand and pushed it back. Guess it's my turn. He vanished, but not for long. A flicker of movement was Kenpachi's only warning before a sandal-clad foot slammed into his lower torso. His body folded over it with a wordless gurgle, then he was driven back, smashed down into the ground. Velocity was vicious. Momentum, malevolent. The transformed Arrancar rode him like a surfboard, drilling his back into the street, carving a fiery furrow in his wake. His ribs shattered. Nearly every bone in his body broke outright, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do. Nozarashi tumbled from his grasp. He couldn't find the strength to reach for her. One hit. Damn it. He'd beaten him with just one kick. Naruto hopped off him and nudged him once with his new staff. Satisfied now? Kenpachi tried to raise his head, but he couldn't even manage that. Kill me, kid. You're not gonna get another chance. That beautiful white staff rose and fell. Nah. Zaraki made confused Zaraki noises. The hell? I'm telling you to finish me off already. You won. That may be so, but I don't want to kill ya. The golden light dimmed a little to reveal the smiling man beneath once more. You're a fun fella to fight, and I can tell you're really not a bad guy. So surpass your limits. Keep breaking them. Don't ever hold back, subconsciously or otherwise. And when you're ready, I'll fight you again. We can be battle buddies or something. Until then, he left him there, flat on his back, gasping for air, and just walked away. See ya around. Hope you get well soon, blonde bastard. So this was what defeat felt like. Damn it. Kenpachi heaved a heavy sigh. Where the hell's Ichigo? Nell heard Naruto before she saw him. A mighty explosion, a plume of dust, a moment to wonder what the hell was going on. And then he was just there, standing over her prone form, slapping her attacker aside with the flick of his wrist. Her agile opponent vanished with a gasp and went careening across town. Nell found herself gasping a little as well when she rose, favoring her right side as she drew herself up onto her knees to behold him. His body shone like the afternoon sun, and that was wonderful truly. It was, yet in the same vein, she couldn't help but notice what he held in his hand. She saw the staff. His weapon, no more than that. Naruto had finally found his Zanpakuto. Glowing golden eyes gleamed down at her. You good? When she looked to him, his smile seemed fragile somehow. Yet still, he reached for her. Heat rushed to Nell's face for all the wrong reasons as tentatively she accepted his offered palm. She hadn't been in any true danger, not really, she'd simply been caught off guard. Twice. In one day. Her body wasn't so much wounded as her pride. That might never recover. Still, daring to hold her hand in public? How very bold of him. Yes, she muttered. And you? Naruto gripped his staff tighter. Fine, liar. She knew he wasn't. She could feel him breaking. I'm not dead, you know. He'd insisted so bullishly on that, but there it was. His Zanpakuto, irrefutable proof of what he was. An Arrancar. Exceptionally powerful perhaps, but an Arrancar nevertheless. He couldn't be anything else. That was a lot to unpack, and he would need time to adjust, to heal. Certainly not here. Urahara fanned his face. My, you're certainly making a mess of things. Naruto rounded on him, warding his staff before him with one hand as one might a club. You hurt my friend. Maybe I should make a mess of you. Now. Her attacker dropped his fan and raised both hands. I think we've all had our fill of fighting today. Why don't we let bygones be bygones? You take care of your friend, and I'll take care of mine. Sound fair? Fair? Naruto stepped forward and took a swipe at him, forcing the older man to duck away. You double-teamed my partner. I'll show you fair. Nell grabbed his shoulder and reeled him back before he could take another swing. Naruto, no. We didn't come here for this. His eyes blazed and she wondered if he would fight anyway. She wasn't strong enough to stop him. Fine. He heaved a sigh, then turned a rueful look on her. I need you to make a garganta then. I don't know how to do that yet. Neliel was more than happy to do so. Anything that kept him from leveling this town to the ground. As you wish. Still holding his hand, she turned and touched a finger to the air. It split open at her touch to beckon them home. She stepped toward the impromptu gateway, tugging Naruto with her. He still hadn't stopped glaring gold daggers at his fellow blonde. Somehow she feared these two would have quite the spat in days to come. Nevertheless, she looked over her shoulder and gave one last parting shot. We will return, Shinigami. She stepped through the portal and Naruto with her before her companion could think to give a rebuttal. Kasuke heaved a sigh in their wake. I'm sure you will. Well, this is going to be a bit of a problem. His hat fluttered from his head and fell to the ground, split down the middle, ever so slightly. Urahara's right eye began to twitch. You just had to murder my hat, didn't you? A muscle jumped in his jaw. This meant war. You seem rather distressed, my friend. Was he? Naruto wasn't sure what he felt right now. Things had been going so well. He'd been so certain he was alive, not dead. Everything pointed to it at the time. He still possessed all his abilities and more. Creation of all things was very much with him, as was Kurama. He remembered every bit of his life. None of it had been spent as a hollow, mindless or otherwise. For the longest time, the lack of a visible weapon that all Arrancars were meant to possess only helped further signify strength in his delusion. Proof that he was still himself, that he hadn't screwed up, that he hadn't lost his life. Until it didn't. Aizen really wasn't helping matters with that look of his. When he'd first returned to Wako Mundo triumphant, Naruto thought he'd feel some small semblance of satisfaction or at something. He'd successfully achieved what he set out to do after all. Despite that initial hiccup with Zaraki Kenpachi, and really it had been plenty fun, he'd enjoyed himself in the so-called living world. At the time, he'd even considered dipping back in to check on Ichigo. Now he just felt tired, because you see, he was dead, and he didn't know how he died, or why, or when, only that an entire chapter of his life was closed, and he couldn't even remember it. Kurama sighed. Maybe that's for the best. But Aizen was looking at him, and while he certainly didn't owe him anything, he wanted to respond, if only to blow off some steam. Sorry, I didn't realize Shinigami were so. Aizen granted him a wan smile and gestured to a seat at the table directly beside him. Unique? Odd? Insane? All of the above. Naruto claimed with a sigh and planed his head in both hands. They are, aren't they? The mastermind hummed. Soul Reapers are an odd lot. I may even miss my compatriots when the time comes to truly forsake my place there. A blonde brow rose. You're planning on betraying them. I am, yes. He glanced over his shoulder. And you've found your weapon, I see. Yeah. Naruto cast the staff on his back, a baleful look. I kinda did. Not by choice, though. A flicker of some nebulous emotions passed through Aizen's gaze. It might have been pity. Whatever it was, it vanished just as quickly as it came. May I ask you a question? He shrugged. Sure. Do you truly remember the entirety of your life? His pride prickled. What kind of question is that? Of course I doubt most of it, because I do not. Something froze in his old soul as Aizen said the words. That is, of course, assuming I had a good life. I am told that I was not born in soul society like some, but came to it after being sent there by a Shinigami. From that point on, I worked my way up from a raw recruit into the man you see before you now. His words brought him up short. How does that work? There are essentially two given types of Shinigami. The Soul Reaper reclaimed his own seat and raised a finger. Those who are born in soul society, eventually rising to the ranks of Reapers, and those who are sent there when they die, those who do not accept their fate in this so-called afterlife and choose instead to rise above it. I am of the latter. That was a thing? He hadn't known, but when a soul becomes a hollow, something different occurs. Aizen's finger fell, curling into a loose fist. They become a mindless monster driven by their hunger and prey upon any soul within reach. Even when they evolve and regain sentience, those memories will not necessarily return. Few Arankar here, if any, remember their former lives. Sounds rough, indeed. It may be a blessing to forget who you were before. Ignorance is bliss at times. Naruto's right hand twitched, fingers drumming restlessly against the table. You really don't remember any of your life when you were, alive? I do not. The complete and utter certainty in Aizen's voice told him all he needed to know. He wasn't lying. There might have been a time centuries ago when I did, but I no longer do. That was just too sad. He wasn't supposed to feel bad for this guy, he knew. But in this moment he did. Just a little. I don't want to forget. Then do not. Aizen fixed him with a pointed stare. Clearly your past helped build you into the man you are now. Your power hails from the past, but mine comes from the future. Together well. He held out a hand to him. Together we will make the present a better places. Oh, he was good. He was very good indeed. But he wasn't the only silver-tongued devil here. Save your speeches. He waved a hand, cutting through his charisma like too much confetti. Keep your word to me and we'll have no problems. Of course. The sly Shinigami granted him a shallow smile. I'm not foolish enough to try and fool you in the first place. Strength for you is strength for me after all. Didn't I tell you to spare the speeches, as you wish? It was simply my intent to console you, from one lost soul to another. Lost, eh? A thought struck him. You sent that eye-patch Shinigami after me, didn't you? His scowl deepened when his ally made no attempt to refute those words. He mentioned someone wearing glasses giving him a tip. You wear them from time to time. Aizen tugged a stray strand of hair behind his ear. I may have given Zaraki a nudge, yes. Why? He wasn't angry, just curious to see what his answer would be. He didn't disappoint him. I wanted to test you. Have I proven lacking? Far from it. Satisfaction gleamed in his gaze. You seem to excel in drawing out the potential of others. Had that oath proven too much for you, I would have sent someone to intervene. Which implied that he also had some manner or means of watching him from afar as well. But you handled him quite well. I would expect no less. Dodgy, and he didn't completely buy it. But at least the man wasn't actively trying to kill him. He hadn't the time for that right now. It trusts our agreement remains intact? It does. With a wave of a hand, he conjured a spectral image between them. I'm still looking into a way to create the Ukin without extinguishing so many lives. Are we sure this thing is a key? Aizen's brow furrowed. What makes you say that? He shrugged his shoulder. Call it a hunch. If push comes to shove, I guess I could try smashing my way up there, but I don't think it's gonna be that easy. The best things never were. And besides, he was becoming rather curious about this palace himself. As to whether this Soul King was anything like Kaguya. He made that judgment when the time came. Aizen made a noise that might have been a laugh, in another life. If it were, we wouldn't have Squad Zero to contend with. They shook hands. Their agreement remained for now. How's Nell, by the way? I haven't seen her since yesterday. Relatively unharmed physically, though her pride took something of a beating, I'm told. Where is she? Aizen hummed and looked back to him. In her quarters, I believe, and he's gone. Sure enough, all that remained was a fading plume of so much smoke. Well, I suppose that's one way to secure his loyalty. Aizen Sasuke looked back to his hand and flexed his fingers every so slowly. Why on earth did this baffling blonde make him feel human again? How very strange, perhaps he ought to ponder that later, but with a power like this, Urahara Kisuke would fail, and the worlds would finally change. Nothing could stop them. Kisuke! Urahara hid a rueful smile behind his fan. Ah, the perils of booze. To think, he'd almost forgotten then. You see, Yoruichi Shihoin was something of an unusual drunk. Her mood often fluctuated wildly where alcohol was involved. Sometimes she could be surly, sad, even sultry sometimes after a bit of sake. But after that last battle, well, in hindsight, he really should have thought twice before putting proper pint in her hand. He himself had other means of venting his frustrations, but her. Too late for worries now, he supposed nothing to do but ride it out. Damn it! Yoruichi slammed her now empty tankard down on the bar and slumped against it with a snarl. Blonde bastard knocked me out with one hit. I've been slacking, I need to start training again. Might even have to use my Zanpakuto. Oh dear. Now there was an alarming idea. Now, Yoruichi. Let's not be hasty. Her mug whistled past his head and shattered against the wall. His old friend rounded on him. Kisuyuki. She drawled his name out, hiccuping a little. Train with me. All the blood drained from his face. Well, this certainly boded poorly now, didn't it? Wherever that errand car was, he hoped Naruto was suffering just as much as him right now. Neliel wasn't in her room. Surprising, but she did so love her little walks under the moonlight. He didn't begrudge her that. Maybe she too needed time to think after that debacle in Karakura town. She wasn't the sort who enjoyed violence, but she liked being ganged up on even less. She might have a bone to pick that Happy Hat man as well. That in turn gave him time to ponder. He gave his staff a bleak look. Now what am I gonna do with you? Kurama offered the mental equivalent of a shrug. Try to use it? Wasn't as though he had much choice. Maybe unlocking it would grant him with the answer of his death. He shivered a little at the thought. Now that he knew he really was dead, he both anticipated and dreaded finding his killer in equal measure. Had he died well? Was it a good death? Had he taken his enemy to the grave with him? Or were they still out there somehow? Those questions wouldn't answer themselves, he knew. Let's get to work then. An hour later saw him out on the dunes, practicing with his new tool, if one used the term practice loosely. Release. He swung his staff in the air, drilling through an imaginary opponent. Silence reigned supreme. Well, that was a bit of a spirit breaker. Naruto glowered at his staff. I said release. It remained every much inert. Open. Nothing. His temper sparked. Nell had made this look easy. He was pouring energy into his weapon. That was what he had to do, right? So why wasn't it working? Was it the word he used? Was he missing something here, or was it just sailing right over his head? He could hunt Nell down and ask for help, but the thought made him flush. No. He couldn't go asking her for every little thing. She'd already explained so much to him, done so much for him. Surely she deserved a little rest. But this stupid stinking staff, bah! He flung it across the dunes in a fit of pique. Who needs you anyway? Kurama coughed pointedly, recapturing his attention. On your left. Naruto looked down and found his weapon back at his side. Huh! A strange spooky staff that kept returning to his side no matter how many times he threw it away? Sure, that wasn't concerning at all. Nothing to worry about here, no siree. He'd just keep tossing it away, like nothing had happened. Baffled, he snatched it up and flung it in another direction. It landed in his lap as though he'd dropped it there. His right eye began to twitch. Enough was enough. Scram! He burst to his feet and launched it at full speed. The loathsome weapon vanished across the horizon of Hueco Muendo with a sonic boom, broke the sound barrier and became a distant star in the perpetual night sky. Even then he didn't dare take his eye from said star until it faded for fear it might reappear. A moment passed. 3 now. Good. He let himself breathe. Alright. Guess I'll figure out something else. I don't need no damn weapon to be strong. Clonk. Said staff struck the back of his head from behind at speed and drove his teeth together with a painful click, sending him sprawling face first in the sand. His subsequent snarl was muffled by the dunes. Kurama's laughter certainly didn't help any. His fingers fisted against the coarse grains, squeezing until they superheated into glass. What are you doing, Naruto? He was so busy raging at himself that he didn't hear Nell until she was right on top of him. Mildly embarrassed by what he'd just done, he turned his head and spat out a wad of sullen sand. Suffering, I can see that. She knelt beside him, patient as ever, lips quirked in that small, subtle smile of hers. And why is that? Because of this. He sat up and gave his staff a shake. I keep trying to unlock this damn thing, but I can't figure out how. Nothing works. Rather than retort, she patiently sat beside him instead. You've always been the dogged sort. I'm sure you'll figure it out sooner or later. You always do. Those words of encouragement were just what he needed. A grin swept over his whiskered cheeks as his spirits lifted a little. Thanks for the pick-me-up. It helped. Appreciate ya. Her face turned a pretty shade of pink. He wondered why. You're still willing to working with us, then? Huh? He squinted at her. Of course I am. Nothing's changed on that front, dense as ever I see. Oh. What's that supposed to mean? A dazzling smile lit up Nell's face, and quite suddenly it was his turn to flush. I'm so glad. Oh, and on your left, by the way. His sixth sense shrilled a warning almost too late, for the love of instinct compelled him to act. His right hand whipped out, idly blocking an emerald green Ciro before it could immolate the both of them. His palm sizzled as his fingers closed around it and squeezed. The energy shattered like so much glass, kicking up a wave of smoke in its wake. Coughing, he squinted into it, where a humanoid shape could be seen. Nell sighed softly. You know that's unnecessary, right, Ulquiorra? If you want to say hello, then say hello. He turned to find a pale hollow garbed in white on black robes, a pale finger still raised in their direction. Green eyes shone from a pale face framed by messy black hair and a half-hollow helm. It really said something when the latter seemed more expressive than the former. He told me I could try to defeat him again when next we met. As always, his deadpan tone gave absolutely nothing away. Did I? He tilted his head, vaguely reminded of why he made that promise. This hollow reminded him so much of Sasuke. Oh yeah? I might have said something like that. You're gonna try again? A poignant pause followed as the pale hollow considered him. Not today, no. His pensive expression seemed to suggest otherwise. Why did Arrancar have to be so complicated? If you've got something to say, say it. Very well. His hand fell, hanging loosely at his side as he considered him anew. Why do you exist? Seemed they were getting philosophical today. You want to run that by me again, broody mkbrud boy? Nell hid a giggle behind one hand. Ulquiorra glared at her, but recovered cuckily enough. You are an Arrancar, yet you exist outside of both Lord Aizen's power structure and ranking system. Those cold green eyes drilled into him. It baffles me. Why? You kill for the strangest reasons and yet protect others on a whim. It seems irrational and makes no sense. When last we met you told me it has something to do with a heart. But we are hollows. We do not have hearts. So why? He opened his mouth to reply, but Nell beat him to it, laying her hand on his. Do you need a reason to protect someone? Or to fall in love? Perfect timing. Yeah, what she said. I don't need a reason to do the things I do. I do them because they feel right, you know? Ulquiorra considered him for a long moment. You baffle me, Neliel. You as well, Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde laughed and slung an arm around his shoulder. Ah, thanks, best buddy. He received a scowl for his efforts. We are not friends. We totally are. Ulquiorra shook him off with a sullen sigh. So illogical, well? What are you doing here? Aha. Progress. Well, I have a Zanpakuto, but how the heck do I use it? He paused. Ordinarily one would use a command. Yeah, I got nothing. Nell giggled. Well, it's not that simple. The word encapsulates what you did while you were alive, or as a hollow. That drew an interested look from him. What did you do while you were alive, Naruto? What did you do for those you held dear? Did you defend them? She tried giving him another nudge. Did you swear? Did you promise? Or perhaps, it was like a key turning in a lock. Something clicked in his head. His eyes widened in realization. Protect. The world burst into white light. Bankai. Nice try. Bankai. Bankai. Doesn't work that way. Bankai. Bankai. Bankai already, damn it. You got wax in your ears, partner? I just told you that won't work. Wasted and gasping for air, chest heaving from hours of fruitless exertion, Ichigo Kurosaki hefted Zangetsu in his right hand to glower at the massive cleaver. A pale reflection of his own face leered back at him deep within the gleaming edge of the blade. White as bone, dark gold eyes burning against black scara, visage twisted in a crazed grin without a care in the world. It was decidedly eerie, seeing his own visage staring at him like that. Hard to believe this was his Zanpakuto. Still, He had pulled him out of the fire when it mattered most, so surely that meant something. Hell, if not for him, that blonde hollow might have. No, don't think about that. He had bigger fish to fry. Speaking of which, what the hell's your problem? My problem? That same horribly smug smile was his reward as the soul of his sword refused to falter. My problem is you. You're making demands of me, amateur. Me. I saved your bacon back there. Show a little respect. A muscle jumped in his jaw. This isn't about respect, it's about survival. In an instant the weight of his blade tripled, smashing the mighty cleaver into the ground at his feet, nearly taking his foot off in the process. Precisely. You won't survive without me. So stop treating me like some damn tool and show proper respect. Ichigo grit his teeth. He never felt so weak in all his life. It was a sobering reminder. Even with his newfound power, there were others out there with even greater strength. He couldn't protect anyone like this. Not Rukia, not Oriheim, not his family, not anyone. Oh ho? And here I thought you were too much of a meathead to bother with girls. He gripped Zangetsu's hilt with snarl, blasting a massive Getsuga into the dirt, spraying rubble every which way. Good, Ichigo, good. That's the way. Use that anger, harness it, channel it into strength. Brown eyes briefly blazed yellow before he blinked the haze away. I know what you're doing, trying to help you? Hefting the sword of his soul, he glared at his other self. He'd seen Naruto fought that captain to a standstill. He hadn't been able to get close to either of them. He was weaker than them both. Weak. The word burned in the back of his brain like a brand, infecting his every thought, staining his resolve. Urahara was sighing somewhere in the background. He could hear him, the absolute bastard. But none of that mattered now. So long as he lent him his training grounds, he could complain all he liked. He would get the hang of this sword, he would become stronger. He had to. He must. Fine. He grunted at last, acknowledging his mistake. You're right, I'm wrong. I won't treat you like a tool. Zangetsu's golden black eyes widened in surprise for a brief moment, then his face split in a sardonic smirk. You and I are gonna get along just fine, amateur. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Stop calling me that. Better me than the old man. He would have shackled your progress, slowed you down. Old man? Not important. What is important is this. You're weak, Ichigo. A vein pulsed in his temple. Say that again. Weak, weak, weak. His other half cackled hysterically, making the blade physically tremble from the sheer force of his mirth. I'll say it as many times as it takes to get through that thick skull of yours. You're a baby bird that can't fly, an ant swept up in a storm, a toddler crawling on all fours. All you can do is swing that sword of yours. But don't worry, you won't be weak for long. I'm gonna make you strong. How? I'm so glad you asked. Now tell me, what do you know about hollows? His brow furrowed. Probably less than I should. A merry laugh followed. There's a good king, admitting his faults. His right eye twitched. What was that? Nothing. Now then, spiritual pressure. It came out of nowhere. One moment he was scowling at Zangetsu and enduring the Zanpakuto's madness, and the next an unseen weight slammed down on his shoulders, driving him to a knee. It felt like an ocean had opened up above him, and he was trapped beneath it, drowning, unable to move, unable to think, unable to breathe. It eased a second later, leaving him wasted and gasping for air. Despite the inherent dread it conveyed, that overwhelming presence felt familiar, like that blonde bastard. Yet when he glanced around, no one was there. Not a soul. Even so, he felt it, knew it, feared it. What the hell was that? I think that was your foxy friend. Silence pervaded the clearing. Ichigo glanced at his sword. So about that Bankai. Yeah, his pale self sighed. We should probably get on that. So Aizen stood in the heart of his citadel, surrounded by shifting shadows and the echo of distant colliding moons. He folded his hands behind his back as he observed the swirl of golden-orange light blossoming on the horizon of Hueco Mundo's desert. He was not idle by choice. He had been watching for some time now, observing. His dark eyes were fixed on the spot where Naruto had exhaled his strength. Now it was a pillar, rocketing upward. A slow, almost imperceptible smile spread across Aizen's face. The sight was exquisite. Naruto's chakra, entwined with the essence of the nine-tailed fox, coloring the air with a brilliant hue against the sky's dull maw. It was unlike anything he had seen among this realm's denizens. He sensed it as much as saw, a primal force, not unlike the Ryatsu of the strongest espada, but laced with something different. This was no mere Arrancar awakening, it was unique, as expected of his partner. He'd arrived only a short while ago. Now he watched Neliel beside him, eyes wide with wonder. In that shared silence, Aizen allowed himself a moment of smug satisfaction. So this is the result of my gambit. Years of machinations, hidden research, all for this. Naruto had proven to be a far more interesting asset than expected. He was no pawn carved neatly into Arrancar form. His very power was unpredictable, monstrous, yet compelling. If properly directed, such a force could usher in a new age. Aizen's lips quirked as he noted Neliel's face gently lighting up under Naruto's glow. She stood near him but remained transfixed, chest rising with excitement. She never took her eyes from Naruto's form, even though she could not fully see it. A taut smile tugged Aizen's own lips as he leaned slightly forward. Naruto need not fall on his knees and swear absolute loyalty to him. He was a patient man. Power, Aizen murmured quietly to himself, voice lilting as ice in warm honey. It carried just enough warmth to seem almost amiable. Incredible power. The word was grudging praise, meant as much for the fellow before him as for his own careful planning. He felt it coursing from Naruto like a burning river, the kind that carved canyons of opportunity if one knew where to divert it. Aizen closed his eyes for a moment. He mentally catalogued everything he knew of this world's new ally. Heat. Light. A feral ferocity. He had lived long enough to know this was not just chakra, or a glorified chakra manipulation. It was much more primal. 700,000 facets, he mused. Who would have guessed such raw talent resided in a mortal shell? As Naruto's inferno of chakra slowly subsided, Aizen opened his eyes. He nodded, almost imperceptible. Within that little nod lay satisfaction and purpose. The experiment had proven promising. Much of his plan might have been hunch, but fate smiled tonight in the form of Naruto's unleashed might. And there it is, he said aloud to himself, as much a confirmation as an incantation. He felt arms shift. Neliel had not moved since the release. Aizen turned to her, still gazing at the fading echoes. Impressive, he observed softly. Isn't it? Neliel blinked, shaking as if waking from a dream. She beamed, eyes glowing, and nodded, words catching in her throat. Yes, she whispered with a smile, glancing toward him over her shoulder. He's brilliant. Aizen's smile deepened, barely noticeable. Yes. Brilliant, he agreed, as though he had not already drawn that conclusion before the display began. He clasped his hands behind his cloak once more. It seems our dear comrade's full strength is beyond even what the Espada can wield, but we will need to keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, inside Aizen's mind, threads of calculation wove themselves. There would be a response to this, naturally. The other hollows of this realm, some of which he very much wished to recruit, would take notice. A particularly surly skeleton, for instance. Baraggan's response, the mood of Hueco Mundo, the loyalty of the newly gathered allies, all were variables in his grand design. This demonstration would surely change some of those variables. Aizen allowed it to intrigue him. How would each player react to the spark Naruto had just thrown into this scorched earth? Neliel flicked a strand of moss-green hair from her eyes. Her heart was pounding so fast she was sure it could beat out of her chest, and all her blood felt like it had turned to molten gold. She took a breath and stepped forward a little, closer to the epicenter of energy, closer to Naruto. How amazing, she said softly to herself, but loud enough for only Aizen to hear. Naruto. Aizen's gaze flicked to Neliel. She was quiet, her form trembling with emotion. He allowed himself a rare, indulgent grin. His new ally had inspired feelings even in an Espada. Tea tickled him. He remembered what Neliel was to him, broken, lost, reclaimed. Perhaps Naruto was healing something in her heart with that power. He pondered that silent thought, and wondered if he might harness it. Aizen murmured. He turned back toward where Naruto stood at the edge of the light. Naruto's release state had finished, sealed back into his staff, and now he looked himself again, but still radiant. He was breathing heavily, hands balled into fists, and sweat made golden rivulets on his brow. Aizen felt such control, such calm, in his own aura beside her. Neliel, he said quietly, though more to himself than to her. It appears you are not the only one with a weakness for flames. Neliel's cheeks flushed deeper. She didn't look away from Naruto, rather, she couldn't. A warm longing bloomed in her chest, visible even to him. Aizen chuckled softly, tilting his head. Yes. Very well, Nell. But for now. His voice became sharper, heavy with purpose. We have other matters to which we must attend. Baraggan's been restless. This new development may provoke him. We should keep watch. Neliel finally turned to Aizen's face, eyes luminous and gentle. Of course. She agreed, steadying herself. As Aizen turned his back on the fading pyre of chakra, his cloak swirling around him like midnight wings, Neliel quietly took one last look at Naruto over Aizen's shoulder. The new light had faded, but her memory of how he looked in it would remain forever, dazzling, invincible, and warm. Meanwhile, in the distant human world far from these events, Yoruichi Shihoin trained under the late afternoon sun. Her furrowed brow betrayed fatigue, but her movements were precise and powerful. Sandbags swinging on chains became blurs around her as she struck them with rapid succession of kicks and punches. Each blow was more ruthless than the last. Each reeked of her frustration. She wrapped her knuckles with tape and snapped it against her forearm, breathing hard. This place, her secret dojo on the outskirts of the human world, held only the impact scars of her training. Around her, the sky was painted with sunset oranges and purples. But she saw none of it. Her golden eyes were shadows of anger, and something else she couldn't name yet. She remembered Naruto's strength, that ally with him, how easily she had fallen in the face of them, and she'd felt that terrifying spiritual pressure. She clenched her fists. Training won't break this body, but he surpasses me, and I. Her pride stung. A growl rose in her throat. Yoruichi's golden eyes narrowed as she envisioned Naruto's grin. I'm supposed to be the fastest in this. Yet she wasn't. A bag swung from left to right in front of her. Yoruichi stepped forward, whipping a roundhouse kick with astonishing speed. Her leg moved so fast that it blurred into a streak of black and violet. Contact sent the bag spinning. A heavy exhale gusted from Yoruichi's lips as it swung back. She released her foot and pivoted, delivering an elbow into the swinging bag. It dented inward with a satisfying crack, swinging the bag forward to collide into a nearby concrete pillar. The pillar's plaster chipped, cracks splintered outward. Yoruichi's eyebrow ticked upward. Better. Yoruichi leaped into a forward roll and sprang up to deliver a spinning backkick. Her boots carved a clean line through the evening air. But the bag shattered under the power, fibers strewn about her like confetti. She turned, searching in the empty spot where the target had been. A grin formed on her face for a fraction of a second, and then the anger came surging back. Why am I so angry? She wondered, panting lightly. Clearly, she was better off than Naruto in many ways. She had more freedom, more experience, and certainly fewer holes in her chest. Yet the hurt remained. She looked at her hands, the scars and seams on her gloves. This pain gnawed at her, not from Naruto's strength, but from something deeper. Is it jealousy? She asked herself. Or admiration? Yoruichi tightened her fists again. It didn't help to parse it now. She gave a snort. Damn it, she muttered to herself, stamping her foot once, stirring dust. He's too damn reckless anyway. Who does he think he is? She forced herself to focus on her breathing, the rhythm steady in and out. I'll show that big idiot, Yoruichi whispered aloud, not hiding her mixed feeling of ire and something else. Her tail swished sideways. How dare he outpace me like that? Her voice softened, betraying a hint of relief. A complex emotion flickered, pride. She felt a glow that felt good, but it was undercut by frustration. Yoruichi sprinted a few steps, then turned and unleashed a series of lightning-fast strikes at the air. 1, 2, 3, a flurry. Each blow she threw with precision. She tried to catch the feeling of Naruto's power in each fist. She tried to be as ferocious, as fierce. Why did her chest burn now, after such strikes? The emptiness pushed her to move again. She skipped backward into a graceful somersault, landing on her toes with an abrupt squeak. She wanted to exceed him, surpass him, because why? Because they were friends? Allies? They most certainly weren't, because of that damn smile. Yoruichi delivered a final punch straight out, breaking several reeds that had been growing stubbornly in the ground before her. She twirled on one foot, another graceful flip, and then stood still. Her sides were heaving as she clenched her jaw. Enough for today. She smirked at her reflection in a distant cracked mirror propped against a wall. Reflexively, she ran a hand through her hair. Realizing she could still improve after all this time warmed her spirits, like a tide of pride. But the other side, the one turning like anger or something else, wouldn't calm. In this, she could understand why Ichigo was training himself half to death. The strong always dominated the weak, and Yoruichi was not weak. I have to be better. Even as she straightened up and walked toward the path home, her mind bounced with mixed thoughts. Maybe I should have saved that last punch for Naruto, she murmured. But one thought remained clear among the swirl. Whether Yoruichi's feelings were anger or admiration, one thing was certain: she would not be left behind. She would catch up to that stubborn, chest-holy brat in her own way, even if she had to burn out the shadow in her own chest to do it. Neliel's skin felt as if it were aflame. Though the chill of Hueco Mundo was bitingly present, her pulse hammered with heat. All she could see was the golden-orange blur of Naruto's aura, reflected in her wide eyes. Every instinct in her body leaned forward as if to draw closer, eager to breathe the same air he exhaled. Her mouth was dry. She wet her lips with the tip of her tongue. From where she knelt, crouched low on a dune, she saw Naruto's chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, sweat on his brow. He was still as a statue carved from honeyed sunbeams. As the glow receded, an empty ache of loss bloomed in her chest. She still clung to the phantom warmth of the power like a moth to flame. The air itself felt diminished around her as Naruto's raw chakra ebbed away. Neliel's emerald eyes followed him as he stowed his staff over his shoulder. Relief and pride and something softer, why did it make her think of the tender afterglow of a sunset, trembled inside her. All doubt in her mind dissolved. Naruto had risen to the challenge. He could protect others. A flutter of warmth spread from her heart to her lips. Protect. Such an ironic name to unsheathe his released state. Without thinking, Neliel moved forward swiftly, stepping out from behind a crumbled wall. Naruto! She called softly. The word caught him by surprise, as though he'd forgotten she were there at all. He spun around, breathing heavily, and their eyes met. Naruto's fiery orange light was gone, but Neliel saw it still flicker within, in the way his eyes held it, and in the air of silent pride around him. Hey, Nell! Naruto said, instantly flushed with color at the memory of her name. Sorry, just lost in thought. The breeze carried his scent, charcoal and sunlight, and something all her own. In the flickering twilight, she looked both ethereal and alive, strange as the contrast might sound. That was impressive, Neliel managed, immediately cursing herself for the whisper. She brushed green strands of hair from her face and approached slowly, as if unsure any of this was real. You've got some power, Naruto. I've never seen anything like that. Naruto let out a ragged breath. That was new, he admitted, offering her a weary smile. Kinda got carried away. Neliel's eyes softened. It was beautiful, she insisted, stepping closer. He lifted his chin slightly, surprised by the awe in her voice. Powerful, she corrected herself. Her hand brushed his shoulder gently and then wound behind his neck, fingers digging into his colorful clothes, latching on tight. Intoxicating. His eyes widened, but she didn't give him time to respond. She murmured a quick apology. Before he could react, Neliel leaned forward with heartfelt reverence and pressed her lips to Naruto's, caging them a gentle kiss. He froze for the instant it took her to close distance fully, shock crossing his face. Her lips were warm and full. Golden strands of hair tickled his cheeks as she held him tightly. When he realized what had happened, he blushed harder than ever and began to pull back. But Neliel caught his gaze, unwavering. She felt a surge of affection that she could no longer contain. She bit her bottom lip softly, then closed the gap and kissed him again. Longer this time, kinder. Around them, the stillness of dusk settled. If there were winds or the cries of the distant Arrancar, they could not have been heard over Neliel's racing heart. When they finally broke apart, almost reluctantly, Naruto looked speechless, face burning brighter than the exploding flame of his chakra had moments ago. She giggled, hiding her flush behind her hand. Sorry, she whispered anew, eyes sparkling. I've never been that close to someone I admired. I simply lost control. Naruto's jaw dropped, and he made to speak. Neliel gently laid a fingertip under it and forced it shut. Sure, she laughed softly, still incredulous and happy. Don't be mad. Her expression shifted into a grin of pure warmth. I think we make a pretty good team, don't you? That was all the forgiveness Naruto needed. His heart sped up with hope and joy that made his chest wound ache even more. He found his voice. Yeah, he managed, his smile returning fully. We do. High above the desert wastes and the cracked heights of a great tower, Baraggan Luzenbairn sat upon his crumbling obsidian throne. His silver hair was an ashen mantle around his regal shoulders. His face haughty, framed by that skeletal scowl Aizen had bent into compliance. Sprawled before him was the ruin of countless rebellions, blood-streaked marble and the shattered remains of souls who had once challenged his sovereignty. All of them lay inert in the dust of defeat. Yet today, even Baraggan's vast arrogance could not ignore the tremors in the air. The hour was late. The moonlight, pale and cold, fell through vaulted arches to his chamber, and the silence was pressed heavy on all sides. Normally, Baraggan delighted in solitude. Being a king made loneliness bearable, but the flicker, subtle as candlelight at dusk, had caught him unawares, a momentary brightness on the horizon. He rose from the throne at last, joints cracking with disuse. What was that? The old king demanded, voice echoing through stone halls as he stalked toward the balcony. The wind answered with a howl. The desert sand had glazed the horizon with gold as an inferno flickered, visible even from his distance. Baraggan's eyes squinted as he leaned on the marble, eyes narrowing against the dust and shimmering light. Out there somewhere, someone had ignited Hueco Mundo itself. Or unleashed something close. His senses were hardly negligible, so if he sensed, he saw. He saw light from a distance, even in the shadows. Color bloomed into consciousness in Baraggan's icy chest. Awe, then horror, then something deeper, jealousy. His world stood still, a silent tempest brewing behind his eyes. A ninja? He had not expected ninja powers to reach here. Baraggan stiffened as a smile peeled across his face, but it was all as empty as bone. Naruto's light consumed chunks of the horizon, and Baraggan felt, for perhaps the first time in years, completely overshadowed. The flame did not belong to his kingdom, or maybe it belonged to him by right, far more than that boy. Baraggan flared crimson with outrage. This was Hueco Mundo's land, not a playground for outsiders. Alone at his height, Baraggan's heart thudded with fury that was nearly foreign to him. Power. His lips curled, mirroring Aizen's cunning grin to himself. Even Aizen's new toy reveals secrets. Every day, Baraggan reassured himself he was second only to Aizen. Yet now, witnessing this power made him feel smaller. If he died tonight, the desert would barely notice. Life, Baraggan decided, had become torture. His voice, smooth as old stone, carried to the sky beyond. So someone has outshone me, he grumbled. Nothing in Hueco Mundo was greater than he, and he felt all that slipping. Enough. Warmth turned to ice. Baraggan seized the golden light washing the horizon. The desert couldn't celebrate it. He would not kneel to it. He would force the world to kneel to him. Baraggan's body moved without waiting for thought. The throne dissolved behind him as Arrancar materialized. His boots grounded onto the great stone floor, leaving cracks and lines that seemed like dark veins. He adjusted his axe, the weapon of senility and authority, tightly in his withered fingers. With a roar of his own, he flung himself off the balcony into the dark night air. There could be no light in this dead, sunless realm. He must silence it at once. Something was trying to catch him. Trying being the operative word, failing more like. For the better part of a week now, Naruto had sensed a spiritual pressure on the edge of his awareness chasing him, constantly seeking him out. Sometimes for minutes, hours at others, always hounding him at the oddest intervals and always falling just short as he slipped through their grasp. It was fun! Oh yes, he had an inkling of who was chasing him, which was precisely why he went out of his way to avoid them. He began to make a game of it as the days dragged on, sometimes slipping into the human world where the spiritual presence couldn't or wouldn't follow, at others escaping it by the thinnest of margins, thereby forcing it to chase him from one end of Hueco Mundo to the other until it inevitably gave up for the day, much to the chagrined amusement of Aizen and his Arrancar. He even managed to rope Neliel and Ulquiorra, albeit with a great deal of bribery on the latter's part, into playing along with his charade, thereby aiding him in his little game. But all games must end, and so did his, quite suddenly one day. He'd been going over a new report from Aizen down in the dunes, something about him recruiting a new Arrancar by the name of Neliel Harribel. He was rather eager to meet her himself. A new ally. A new friend. Finally, something to break through the doldrums of the day-to-day. Problem was, she and her underlings liked to wander, so he hadn't actually met her yet, meaning he had to hunt her down himself. Stranger still, Neliel was being sulky for some reason and refused to go with him to meet her. Here are bigger than mine. Just what in blazes did that mean? Oh, Kurama sighed. Still dense as a brick, I see. Something interrupted him as he pondered that question. It was his own fault, really. He'd lingered too long in one's place and gotten distracted. Like a fallen star, a massive monstrosity sped across the unsteady air, honing in on where he had glimpsed Naruto. Cape bristling atop his shoulders at the sight of him, the old Ironcar's gnarled face twisted into a confident sneer. The second he saw Naruto's figure descending from the glow, all his restraint vanished. He attacked. Enough! He bellowed, voice booming like thunder, scattering the sand around them at his command. Even the wind stilled. You shall flee from me no longer. Who are you supposed to be? Poor choice of words, that. Within moments, the Ironcar towered above him, mighty axe planted firmly on the cracked earth. He looked larger in the other's presence. It felt natural, like twilight claiming the sun. His skeletal grin widened. You, he hissed, voice low and conspiratorial but laced with venom. You think you can come here and flaunt your undisciplined power before me? Again, I have no idea who you are. The behemoth lashed out at him, axe cleaving the air. Naruto swayed aside lightly, dodging the blow, colorful coat fluttering in the wind of its strike. I am Baraggan Luzenbarn, king of Hueco Mendo, Kurama snorted in his soul. So he claims. Naruto mirrored it. As Baraggan boomed at him, the blonde only folded his arms, temper rising from the confrontation. Despite his surface calm, his mind raced. The espada before him was not monstrous in size. The entity would have even seemed frail in previous times, but his presence was immense, oppressive. He was awe-inspiring, an alien ruler with rags of kingdom decaying all around him. Yet his pride would not back down. Naruto smirked, posture unbowed. The Arrancar's words fell onto strong ears. Flout my power, huh? His voice carried a spark of humor. It's more than flouting, just calling it what it is. He tilted his head, eyes clear in the darkness. Hey, old man, I mean Baraggan, didn't you hear? The desert doesn't have a king these days. What insolence! Baraggan hissed. He puffed up. Old man? His laugh was a bark of scorn. Do not presume familiarity with me, whelp. He inhaled, eyes alight with cruel amusement. But I shall allow your insolence once for my entertainment. As your liege, you will address me with respect. Respect? For what, exactly? There was nothing to respect here, Naruto scoffed, smiling, taking on a sharper, uglier edge. What's there to respect about you? He gestured with one arm, not deigning to draw his staff. You're living in a crumbling castle, Gramps, and I haven't seen hide nor hair of you until now. If you really were in charge, you would have met me the moment I found myself in this place. Instead, you cowered in the shadows, like a dog. A lone finger rose, jabbing his way. I know we don't exactly have mirrors here, but just take a look at yourself. Baraggan's good eye narrowed upon him. Watch your tone, boy. Or what? He held nothing back. The thrill of anger gave him momentum, spurring him onward. You'll lop off my head? Turning a baleful look to the man's weathered axe, he gave it all the respect it was due, that is to say, none at all. King, you say? What are you king of, exactly? A world of sand? There are no castle walls here, my lord. No ceiling, either. No subjects that cherish your so-called rule. Indeed, one could say you are. Do not say it, king of nothing. He spat back, grinning ear to ear. The king's jaw snapped shut. Baraggan straightened with the idea Naruto had said something witty. At length, laughter exploded from him, a dry, rasping sound. So the fox soldier is brave, is he? A pleasure, then. Let me make one thing clear. He raised his spear, golden-stained glass forming at its tip. Your pitiful demonstration is an affront to this world. I demand your fealty. Swear to me that you serve the second espada, and perhaps I shall regard you as a worthy subordinate instead of an intruder. Naruto bristled. Heat surged across his face. Insult at being commanded. A shiny, stubborn defiance filled him. Forget that. He straightened up to Baraggan's eye level, far lower than expected, but he didn't look away. Swear fealty to you. Are you crazy? I just made all that power look easy. Why would I ever bend knee to the likes of you? The tension between them snapped like a drawn string. Baraggan's eyes gleamed a dull red. Scars and wrinkles did not hide the surprise of Naruto's brazenness. Bruised pride fueled the emptiness Baraggan felt, and in an instant rage replaced his smirk. A cruel grin spread as brought forth his weapon. Then you will die. His axe slammed down with a singular command. Rot. Arrogant, all flesh fell away, decaying from his bones in a matter of moments, leaving him face to face with a skeletal warrior, crown upon his head. Wreathed in baleful black robes, the lich-like creature leered at him, skeletal jaw parting with an audible clack of sound. In that second of gloating cruelty as basked in his true form, Baraggan sneered at him like the so-called king he claimed to be. I shall allow you to release your weapon as well. Consider this a final mercy from your lord and liege. Naruto thumbed his nose. Nah, don't need it. Impudence. He exhaled furiously with respira, a grim breath decaying the air itself. Rot and age attacked Naruto as if flesh had spontaneously turned to vinegary flesh, but his superior regeneration took that to task, mending the damage in an instant. As Baraggan balked, he charged in without fear, a dart of golden-orange energy, wholly different now from moments before. Naruto moved past the fading damage with uncanny speed. He ducked under Baraggan's swung axe and landed a solid blow to the skeleton's knee with a booted kick. The creature's axe clanged against the rock, vibrating through his sturdy bones. Silver dust fell from cracks in the ground as he reeled. Naruto's second strike followed, a heated punch to his rigid face, knocking him backward. Baraggan recovered, eyes raking at Naruto's steady advance. He sneered. Mere trick, shinobi! He spat, though his face was a grimace of pain. He stabbed downward with his axe, unleashing a jagged line of rotting wind that burrowed toward Naruto's leg. Naruto laughed, wholly without humor, taking advantage of Baraggan's arrogance. He somersaulted over the blade, landing behind the older arraigner with a thundering knee to his back. The blow cracked bones and racked him to the side, causing him to stagger on shaky legs. Naruto seized the moment, flashing a grin. He reached back, channeling chakra, forming a Rasengan in his palm. With a single step he slammed it into Baraggan's chest. The impact sent the skeletal abomination flying into the desert. He crashed through a dune, falling to the ground with scattered grit. Naruto landed lightly before him, arms crossed before his chest. Had enough? Baraggan coughed blood, defiant though beaten. He used desiccation to draw shattered life into himself, straightening on his hands with aging smoke curling around his form. His precious golden crown had begun to crumble atop his skull. You insufferable child! He wheezed. I am the king here. You will kneel, ha! Naruto barked a laugh. I don't kneel for anybody. He beeped his head. Especially not the ancient, the jealous, or the decrepit. Baraggan's grip on his axe tightened. Absently, he watched his cleaving weapon sink into the sand. Boy, he tried another respira this time. A cloud of dust formed around Naruto like rot in a cloud. He was already prepared. With both arms extended in a martial pose, he conjured a cyclone of chakra, a whirling typhoon of wind chakra. The cyclone hit Baraggan's respira breath full force and tore it to pieces. Baraggan's eyes widened mere moments before the cyclone found him, tossing him away like a child's unwanted toy. Naruto dashed forward, agile as a panther, the cyclone encircling with but a thought. He was on Baraggan in an instant, elbow to ribs, and a boot to the back of the head. The errand car hit the ground on all fours, groaning furiously. You dare strike your king? Naruto stepped forward, shaking his head. I'm about to do a lot more than that. Baraggan's head snapped up, black on red light building between his jaws. Die. It was a very nice Zero, Naruto mused in hindsight, point blank, impossible to dodge, even for him. He had no choice but to cross his arms and tank it, let it sear across his clothes and flesh. If it weren't for his superior regeneration, he might have died then and there. When the smoke cleared, he remained much as he was, robes singed, chest burnt, wholly unamused. Baraggan balked. What are you? Enough. Sick of it. Naruto raised his foot to stave in Baraggan's skull. Sunshine caught on his eye, signaling the weight behind the upcoming kick. But before he could finish him, a silky voice cut through the night, silencing even the wind. Naruto, the voice said, almost apologetic. Aizen. Had to be. How annoying. Naruto froze, boot raised. Baraggan's ragged face lifted in confusion. High above them, Aizen drifted down like autumn snow, landing gracefully between Naruto and the fallen. Expression was placid and unreadable. The faintest smirk ghosted at one corner of his mouth. In his hand he held his still-sheathed Zanpakuto, poised to draw in an instant. A white haze almost seemed to cling to him as his spiritual pressure enfolded around his body. "You've done well, Naruto," Aizen said quietly, voice laced with satisfaction. Then louder, to Baraggan, "Now stand down." Baraggan, gasping and beaten, glared at the newcomer. He managed to grunt, "You would have me yield?" His voice was hoarse, broken. The world seemed to warp as two absolute powers faced him, one battered at his feet, one hovering above. The world of hollows held its breath. Aizen allowed himself to breathe. This was a sufficient test, very satisfying. The smiling Shinigami watched through narrowing eyes as Baraggan's faltering spiritual pressure faded beneath the night sky. Naruto had stood down, leg lowered but still poised to deliver the final blow and certain to look away from his blaze. The boy's pride glimmered like steel in his gaze. Aizen stepped quietly back, allowing the wounded Baraggan 2 heartbeats of false victory. It was enough. Baraggan's chest heaved against the crimson spill from Naruto's attack. He tried to speak, something raw and insistent rising to his lips. It was all Aizen needed. In a flash so fast not even the old King Arrancar reaction could follow, Aizen's blade was at Baraggan's throat. A single swipe was all it took. Baraggan's eyes flared open, rage, shock, confusion. "Aizen!" He tried to choke out, the title lost in a gurgle. His head rolled from his bony shoulders, struck the ground, and began to dissolve. His body was already stiff, his knees buckling. He'd slain him. Mid-sentence, mid-breath, mid-scheme, the king of time now a victim of it. His power faded instantly, leaving only dust motes where once spirit danced. Naruto stared, dumbfounded, at Aizen's calm posture. He turned a baffled glance, staring up at Aizen. "You," he began, but the words died in his throat. Aizen simply beeped an eyebrow. "You were about to kill him," Aizen said softly, touching his hand lightly to his ear. "Am I not correct?" Naruto seethed with conflicting emotions, he could tell. Baraggan lay at their feet, dissipated. At Aizen's actions, it was impossible to tell whether the blonde felt relief or disgust. Perhaps both. He kept his voice even enough. "You used him, didn't you?" This was another test. Aizen shrugged gracefully, a silky smirk playing on his lips. "I simply removed a loose thread," he said dismissively. The smile turned to a respectful nod toward Naruto. "As ever, I admire your strength and loyalty, my friend. And true friends protect each other, do they not?" Naruto stood, backing off. His gaze stayed on Aizen. "You could have just let me handle it," he said, voice low. Aizen's eyes gleamed with amusement. "This is not a matter for you alone, Naruto. Baraggan's final loyalties no longer matter. He has outlived his usefulness." His tone was final, like a judge passing sentence. To Aizen, it was just another calculation. A flicker of humanity appeared in his eyes at seeing Naruto's hurt face. "I'm sorry if I upset you. But there were considerations." Jin had suggested they remove the old Arrancar, while Tozen argued otherwise. In the end, it came down to cold logic. Threats must be removed. Naruto clenched his fists, drawing him back to the present. "Bastard," he said flatly. "You'd never let anything get in the way of your plans, would you?" "Nothing that cannot be sacrificed, yes," Aizen replied calmly, wiping his blade clean against his cloak. Baraggan had become inadequate. Naruto's heart clenched. He spat. "Inadequate? That crazy old fool didn't deserve that. He was going to kill you." Aizen sighed, absurdly gentle in his reply. "He was. But my dear Naruto." He sheathed his Zanpakuto and stepped to stand alongside the blonde. Over the pale horizon, the first star of night winked bright. Aizen's gaze drifted, almost fondly, to Naruto. He was weak. "You are strong. I need allies who understand strength, not those stuck in dilapidation." The blonde didn't flinch. If anything, he looked quietly contemplative. For a moment, Aizen felt truly pleased, seeing an equal in him, someone who might stand the test of time. Content, he turned to walk away, offering Naruto one final glance of approval. "You handled it well. Continue to grow, and our goals will remain aligned." Naruto watched Aizen leave, the victorious glow of war settling in his eyes. Aizen's words, warm as poisoned honey, left him conflicted, but more sure of his own beliefs than ever. He had no kings. His loyalty was to his friends, not to manipulation. Baraggan's corpse dissolved into dust upon the ground, the desert reclaiming its own. Naruto took a deep breath to keep himself from being sick, or angry, or anything that might break the calm he was forcing. Whatever games Aizen played, he knew one thing: he would decide who truly deserved his respect or ire. And tonight he'd learn some harsh, muddy truths. As the dust settled, Aizen's voice drifted back on the night breeze, almost inaudible. "Strike true, Naruto," he whispered, leaving an ember of a promise behind. "Long live the king." So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story. And also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.